Hello everyone, my name is Captain Logan. Remember it, and joining me tonight is my son Jayson.
It's me.
And we've got John.
Hello everyone.
Who hasn't been on the channel in a little while.
Yeah, Dad's
John?
Dad's like,
yeah.
When he wanted to do this review, he was like, to me, my reviewers.
John, it's good to see you, man. Thanks a lot for joining us for the review tonight.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Is this officially your first How We Felt About / Spoilercast?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
John is usually my go-to spend way too many hours in front of a stream watching a show guy. He's done 5 whole seasons of Smallville with me. We've got the other half of the show left to do, which we're going to bring back in the not-too-distant future. This is X-Men, so I have to say not-too-distant future. I haven't been able to do that for the last few months because we've got a new baby in the house, but she's finally old enough I'm going to be able to come back and start doing that again. But John told me that he watched through the show, and I was like, oh, we got to have John on for the show, and Austin is not watching it and seemed to have no interest, so that's why he's not here tonight. He was like, I don't think I've ever want to watch that show. I'm like, but it's really good, but I guess he just doesn't really care that much about the old show and doesn't really have a connection to it. Before we jump into this, John, why don't you give us any background you have with X-Men, because Jayson and I have talked about the original show kind of ad nauseum. We've done a few reviews together. I think we just have the last season or the last 2 seasons to do.
We have 4 and 5 to do.
Maybe
we
we'll
should do soon.
Backtrack and finally finish those at some point. Yeah. But John, what is your background with the original '92 show?
So growing up, my aunt was a big X-Men fan, and they had released some kind of collection of tapes, and it had like a special case and everything. But it had like the first 4 or 5 episodes, and then she gave those to me. And I don't ever remember what happened to the second tape, but I had the first tape, which had like the first 3 episodes. So I watched those a lot. I've seen the pilot for the original show, probably like a dozen times.
I bet. Were those the black box ones?
Yes.
Yeah, those were awesome looking releases. They really grabbed your attention. Yeah. And everybody remembers the Pizza Hut releases, but I had the ones you're talking about also.
And then when I got a little bit older, Marvel started recollecting some of those animated shows on VHS, mainly X-Men and Spider-Man. And I had this X-Men one. It was something Wolverine, and it had a bunch of like Wolverine-centric episodes. And that kind of took over for my mainly watched tape of this show, so I've seen those episodes a lot. Like I remember there's an episode where Wolverine goes to Japan.
Yeah, that's the best episode.
Yuriko!
That's my second best. That's my second favorite episode.
And I love the one where in the sewers with the Morlocks and there's like an alien down there, and I didn't understand what was happening, but it was awesome.
I hate that episode.
Jayson and I don't like the Morlocks, and spoiler alert, one of my favorite things is that they might be dead.
Well, they were a happy nation. And...
yeah, you saw it that way. Very tragic. Happy.
Yeah.
I didn't think you could take Ace and Base and make that as like really sad and tear-jerking as it was, but boy, that was a choice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that song has been stuck in my head since I watched this.
I'm happy to do that to you again.
Thank you,
John.
That was a really cool cover of that, though. Did you just like find that? Or?
Yeah, it was just I find all these 8-bit covers all the time, and whoever made that did a really good job with it.
But yeah, that's kind of my experience with the show, and especially as I've gotten older, I've become more of a fan of the X-Men. Of course, I grew up with the movies. I was like 8 when that first movie came out. I've read a little bit of Claremont now, but I need to get back to it. I've read all of Morrison at this point. So I mean, I would say they're probably my favorite Marvel team. Not my favorite Marvel thing in general, because I'm still a big Spider-Man guy. But for teams, like if I'm gonna pick a team, it would be the X-Men.
Real quick, I just wanted to give credit where it was due. That song I played in with was a cover done by a channel called Senegal 8-Bit, so all 8-bit covers. I didn't want to just be like whoever did that. There's the person that did that. Anyway, well, you guys know my and Jason's again background with X-Men in the show, so I'm not gonna belabor that. We'll just start getting into X-Men '97, a show that was anticipated for 3 years, and initially teased all the way back in 2019 as a thing that they were kicking around maybe doing, and by 21 we had an official announcement. It took them 3 years, and in my opinion, really, really worth the wait, and glad that they took their time on it. Jason and I have discussed this show some already, so we're going to be focusing a lot more on the back half, but we'll talk about it in general, of course, as well. We did a mini marathon, blind commentary, or not blind, but commentary on what, Jason, the first 3 episodes?
Yes,
Before.
first 3 episodes.
Okay, so we have talked at length about the beginning of this show. If you are watching live right now, thanks a bunch for being here, and thanks for watching after the fact as well. If you want to help direct the conversation, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount and help us talk about anything that we might not bring up otherwise. And leave regular comments as well if you don't want to do that or you can't do that. Appreciate the support if anybody happens to do that this evening. But I always mention that just to say, if you want to make sure we don't forget to talk about something, that's the best way to do that. But we'll try to interact with the audience as well. Sometimes we get real caught up in our discussion and we have to backtrack a little bit. So just be patient with us if we don't get to your comment right away. But let's go ahead and start getting into the broad strokes of it. We'll do this as a regular how we felt about. We'll do sign flips. We'll do best thing, worst thing for the whole season. And I'd like to add to that favorite and least favorite episodes as well.
Favorite and least favorite episodes.
I kind of want to do that too, and then we might just get into again in a broader conversation, like characters that we thought got enough to do, didn't get enough to do, that kind of thing, and we'll get into the meat of characters and plot and stuff as we go along, and we'll just make it as organically evolved a conversation as possible. Let's let Jason do his sign flip first.
My sign flip.
Because I think of the 3 of us, you are probably the biggest fan of this material, like of the original show.
Yeah, I think I am.
Is this your favorite cartoon?
Yes, the original show.
Right.
Yes, it is. I think it. I mean, the first 4 seasons.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I'm glad that the show got made and is as good as it is just because it left on a real sour season.
Yeah, they really, you know what they should have done? They should have just made it based off of season 5, the season 5 animation.
Oh, no. They're like, screw you, Jim Lee.
Yeah.
We don't need those designs anymore.
No, yeah, I'm a big fan of the original X-Men, and I go back to it from time to time. And I've got my favorite, my favorite episodes that I like to go back to and stuff like that. And I'd say it's probably my favorite cartoon show at this point.
So did this live up to your expectations then?
Yes. Well, my expectations were not high.
Okay, sure.
So I was not expecting anything great from this.
Now, we both got more excited about it when the trailer started dropping.
Yes.
We were like, oh, they're taking this more seriously maybe than we thought they might.
Yes. And the biggest thing that blew me away was, like, the action.
Yeah,
right? They
and a lot of
really
people feel
took
that way.
And, and I mean, the action of, like, from the original show is good, but they really took that and, like, made it, like, way more exciting and made that kind of the most exciting part of that show. And that is one of my best things. That is not my best thing.
Sure.
Real quick, I'm going to say I was feeling it.
And all the way through?
There are...
Are there some dips?
There are a couple dips. I will say it really... This is... I'm going to say my worst thing first. It really falls off. I think it falls off, like, after the midway point.
So you think the first half is better than the second half?
I think the first half is way better than the second half.
Does it kind of come back? Does it ramp back up for you? Or?
For, like, an episode. And then it just
so the finale didn't do it for you either.
No, it did not.
Ooh, we'll have to talk about that. Interesting.
I thought... My biggest problem with this show...
And we won't go full spoiler yet, but I'm sure most people that will watch this have seen the whole show.
My biggest problem with this show was there was too much of, we're doing this thing because it's cool, not because it makes sense. there are way too many things in the show that just happen because it's cool, and I'll get into
and
it.
The finale has that in spades.
Yeah, which is part of why I think it dips.
And diamonds and hearts and spades.
It appears to be the ace of spades.
It appears to be the ace of spades.
But
did you know it's possible to have a favorite Sentinel line?
Yes,
that's my favorite Sentinel line. In X-Men.
But yeah, I will expand on that when we get to spoilers.
Yeah.
But I will just say there was too much stuff that just happened, like that. I don't know why it
with no logic
at all.
Now, to be fair, that happens in the original show.
Yeah.
And so you have to decide like how much more sophisticated you expect this to be.
But the first half, I think, is also more sophisticated than the second half. I think the second half feels more like the original show, but it doesn't feel like the rest of this show. So it kind of feels weird.
It's an excuse then.
Yeah, because they take I think the first half is like, it builds on the original show and makes it like its own show. Yeah. And it has like a different tone, right? It still has those characters, and
and it's true to all that up to a point, and it feels enough like it's in the same world. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so. But it is its own thing, and then they really try to go back to the original series more with the second half. I feel like.
Do you think that's to excuse the logical fallacies, or?
I think the logical fallacies are part of that, where they just did that for, I think that might be an excuse for that, but anyway, I think the second half is not as great as the first half. I think that's my worst thing. My best thing is
the whole second half, or just that it doesn't live up to
the first half.
Sure.
It's still good, and if you had made a first half that was like the same thing as like the same tone and stuff as the second half, I wouldn't mind. But the first half is way better, in like writing and
characterization,
and stuff like that. My best thing though is they took my favorite character, Rogue, and made her insane, and she's like, they made her crazy, and the thing is, there's like only one Rogue episode that's like Rogue centered in the original show, and that's A Rogue's Tale. That's my favorite episode of the whole show. I wanted more Rogue episodes, and then they gave me more Rogue stuff.
They gave you kind of a Rogue-centered season,
to
some degree.
Yeah, to some degree. So that's my best thing, and again, we'll talk about more about.
And you don't feel like they threw her under the bus too much in the second half? Okay, because I could.
Well, because
I'm on the fence about some things with that, and I could see some people being really upset about what's done with her. But we'll talk about that when we get there.
I think what they did with her was pretty good, and then they just kind of forgot about her and didn't do anything in like the last episode. So,
well, she has a big stirring speech, but
yeah, in the second to last episode,
oh,
and
okay,
the final last episode, we do nothing with her, and we never actually like finish her thing. So,
well, that's because Bastion has to have 78% of the dialogue, and then Xavier has to have the rest of it.
Yeah, and there's nothing to that dialogue, but okay, you're
okay. So feeling it. That's your best worst thing.
Best thing, worst thing.
Okay, excellent review. Thank you, Jayson. Let's go to John. John, give us your overall feelings and a best thing, worst thing, and a sign flip.
I don't know where my sign went, but I'll just say it. Overall thoughts was, I really liked this. It kind of felt like what a edgier version of what would have been on TV when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it made me realize how long it's been since we've had a good superhero cartoon on television.
Right.
It's actually kind of funny interesting because I've been watching X-Men Evolution because I've never seen it before.
Me too.
And I was like, this is good, but like, I kind of prefer, animated series for a more traditional X-Men. So rewatching this was kind of a breath of fresh air because this is just the X-Men. At least, as I think of them. My best thing is probably just the animation and like how fluid it is. The fight scenes are all really inventive. I think my worst thing is I kind of also gonna use some of the stuff in the back half for mine. Is we set up such an interesting status quo in the first half, and then by the back half we've completely undone it just to go back to the original status quo of Xavier versus Magneto, like on a ideological debate. And I kind of wish we'd been able to live with that status quo that the first few episodes set up longer.
Yeah, where more humans are in favor of mutants or seem to be, and Genosha is its own separate country, and yeah, wouldn't it have been
Magneto
interesting?
is leader of the X-Men, and
Yeah.
we're taking it more from his point of view and making his point of view like the good guy point of view through it, and then it just randomly flips again.
Yeah, John, you make a really terrific point there. I mean, maybe we did rush that too hard, because how interesting and more impactful might it have been if Magneto started to really believe more in Xavier's dream running the X-Men for a lot longer, and while Genosha is a member of the UN, and while the X-Men are UN sanctioned and everything, like they are at the beginning, and they go on like a lot of adventures together, it didn't occur to me that maybe that's too truncated, but that could have been the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I thought it was really interesting to see, like, especially with Scott, a lot of the stuff in the first half with Scott, like, trying to function with no Xavier to lead him is really interesting.
yeah.
And then we get to, I think, is it episode 6? Where we suddenly cut to outer space, and then you see Xavier, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess that's where we're going."
Oh, we forgot to do
maybe...
favorite and least favorite episode.
Oh, well, okay, we'll go back around and do that then. Thanks, Jason, for keeping me on track. John, it's maybe to a lesser degree a little bit like WandaVision in that way, where at some point you go, "Oh, now it's MCU again."
Yeah. But I don't find that I don't think it falls off quite as hard as Jason said.
I don't either,
actually. That's just a little, like, nitpick. Like, I kind of wish if you were going to eventually get to the original status quo that had been, like, season 2, like, let us have that status quo, because I find Magneto being forced to live up to Charles's ideology and lead the X-Men very interesting. But because this is only 10 episodes and they have a lot to do, the X-Men just trust him like 3 episodes in, and by episode 7, was it 7 or 8, we're just back to status quo.
Now, I will say they earned that better than I thought they would. Really in the whole country believing more in Magneto with the way he handles Executioner in episode 2 and all of that, but and just allowing himself to be put on trial and going through the motions with that stuff.
Yeah.
But do you guys think, I'm on this for a second because I think I'm with John on this. John, do you think maybe it would have been smarter, or would you have just liked to have seen the end of the season be the mid-season cliffhanger, or maybe do that in the second to last episode so that we can somehow be on a little bit more of a positive high note at the end, so that we're not just like completely crushed with the massacre that happens at the end of 5?
So I do like a TV show or a movie that has the guts to do a bad ending. So I wouldn't have minded if the finale is just what happens in episode 5. That's like a big like what's gonna happen, because the big cliffhanger that we do get for season 2, I'm not nearly as excited about.
No, it feels like a cliffhanger they would have done in the original show.
Yeah. Yes.
It's cool, but I'm not very like invested in that villain that they're setting up. The only time I've seen him is in that terrible movie.
Well, and I know him a lot from the show, and I'm only excited about it because they got the voice spot on.
Well, and I love Apocalypse, so.
Well, we're trying to avoid full-on spoilers, but that's fine, whatever. But yes, they are setting up Apocalypse, and I was really impressed with how well that was foreshadowed.
Yeah. Because
you have a great Apocalypse mention in a joke with Wolverine in like the second episode. Do you remember that bit where he's like, where Jean's freaking out and he's like, "Oh, I guess an apocalypse," And she's like,
Yeah,
"No, I'm having
yeah.
a baby." I'm like, and then when we're actually setting up Apocalypse at the end, I'm like, this season is so tightly plotted that might have been on purpose. That was the name that was dropped. Because even if we might have liked some of that stuff stretched more, and even if you don't like the second half as much, you gotta agree, pretty tightly plotted.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this show is really good with setup. I don't know if you guys noticed this, because I didn't notice it my first watch through. I just noticed it this morning when I was watching it. And I think the first or second episode when Gene is reading, what's his name, Gyrick? I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, Gyrick.
When he's reading his mind, you can hear a happy nation in the background as all that destruction is happening.
More than that, you can hear it in the premonition that because I went back and looked at this, that Jean Grey has in the first episode when she sees Master Mold.
Oh, okay.
It's there too.
Well, no, the first episode is when she reads his mind, isn't it? Isn't that the first episode?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
are
we're
we
talking about the same thing?
Yeah.
I think we might be.
Does the premonition
he reads his
happen-
mind to try to find Master Mold, and
Yes.
it goes awry, and she's like sucked into this premonition, and you can hear
Yes.
Happy Nation.
I didn't realize you were talking about the same thing. Yes, that
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
I was
cool
like,
that
whoa.
happens. Yep. And of course, on a first watch, you wouldn't even know it's that song, because even if you're familiar with Ace of Base, it's slowed down and it's in a different, kind of genre of music. Like you're just hearing a choir sing it. But if you go back and look at it again, it's like, oh my god, it's that song.
RJ Godzilla once says, "I want to know why Deathbird isn't in prison for trying to overthrow her sister with the help of Apocalypse back at the end of season 4. She committed treason." I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta go back and look at that again. I have heard some complaints that as much reverence as this show has for the original, and as good as it often is at going back and referencing things that happened in that show and building on events from that show, it is sometimes sloppy in continuity, and it will accidentally retcon things or maybe intentionally retcon things. It's been too long since I've seen certain episodes and certain seasons, and so more of that went over my head. And I don't know how much of it you were getting, but occasionally I would be like, oh yeah, I gotta go back and watch certain episodes. For instance, there's a name drop. We're spoiling minor things right now. There's a name drop in the very last couple of minutes of the last episode for Creed, for the son of Sabretooth, who is in... He's involved with the Friends of Humanity, and I think it's in season 4 maybe, and they do a whole thing with the technovirus with him, if memory serves. And I didn't remember if he lived or died, but apparently now he's running for and maybe going to become president, which is super scary. So they're doing something with that in season 2. Just wait, we're going to have a horrible like mutant-hating president in season 2.
Which
Yeah.
would be cool. I think that would be.
I mean, I'm a little bit worried about a bunch of rehash with things if we
Yes.
if we keep on with like the Friends of Humanity politics and all of that stuff, because
Yeah.
it was nice to get back to it and to build on the Sentinel stuff without just repeating ourselves and redoing season 1 or certain episodes from that.
Yeah.
Like I was impressed that we went somewhere with it, and that our bad guy by the end was like kind of a cross between a couple of different things, where he's a mutant. He's kind of a mutant and an evil human hating mutants all at the same time, and wants to just destroy everybody. So
Well, and they're
that was
definitely
nice for
not
variety.
afraid to adapt, and they're definitely not afraid to adapt more modern stuff. Because there's a bit of Morrison in here, in places that I noticed. The stuff with Cyclops and the 2 genes. There's scenes here and there that are just straight from Morrison, except they swapped Emma Frost for one of the gene clones, which was really interesting.
Oh, interesting, because the Madeline Pryor stuff is all initially before that stuff.
Yeah, so the main one that jumped out to me on this viewing is there's that scene where they're talking and she realizes that he's mentally talking to Madeline, I think.
Yes.
That is a scene straight from Morrison, except in that one, when he's talking to Jean, he's mentally talking with Emma, who's trying to seduce him.
Oh.
So there's little things like that. But I did want, speaking of continuity, I was because I haven't seen the later season of the show. Is that how the show ends with like Xavier being assassinated? Like, or is that one of the last episodes?
That's the very last episode.
Yes.
That is insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it ends with him being put on a spaceship with Lilandra and flying away, but it seems to be a corpse. Or, like, maybe we can bring him back, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody on Earth
is that how it's
thinks
supposed
that
to
he's
end,
dead.
or was that like a cancellation thing?
No, it was an intentional finale.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I don't know about you, but there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to not be dead. And even with the original show, it was like, well, obviously, if we did more, we'd bring him back. Yeah. Like, there's no way he's going to stay dead. Now, there are big questions here in a little bit when we get into spoilers. And I'll do my sign flip real quickly because we've been talking a lot already. But we're already almost half an hour into the program. But there are going to already big questions about who are we going to keep down and who are we going to bring back. We get rid of a fair number of characters. Both mutant and human in this relatively, for this kind of show. And like, it's grown up along with its audience. It's allowed to be more violent, maybe actually kill characters. It was a big deal in the 90s, the way it even teased character deaths. Like, it intentionally got rid of Morph in the first episode to tell its audience, this is not a typical Saturday morning cartoon. Mm-hmm. Anything can happen. And yes, he comes back later, and yes, nobody really stays dead in that show, but boy, it was a step in a smarter, more unpredictable direction than you had on television before. And I think they're doing a really good job of not pushing the envelope so far that it's a completely different show now.
Well, I'm just glad that the one thing hasn't changed, and then it's Wolverine isn't allowed to do anything for like half the show.
Yeah, but even less so than in the original, right? Like, and I said this when we did that commentary, it felt to me like Wolverine was left largely in the background until toward the end, because the show knows his voice doesn't sound right.
It's so most of the voices, because I've seen this 2.5 times now.
What half did you see?
So I started it when it first came out, and I got to like episode 4, and then I kind of fell off because it was coming out like weekly.
Yeah.
And I just forget to keep up with the show. And then when it was concluding, I'd heard about some of the cameos at the end, so I was like, well, I got to catch up, so I just started it over. And then I started it over today, so that would be 2.5.
Okay, sure.
But
I can say this is the first show in a long time that I've actually kept up with weekly and could not wait to watch on day one, like as it dropped. That was a lot of fun to like actually.
Yeah, and it was fun like watching like the clips like that they came out with like the day before and being like,
I wasn't doing
this
that,
next episode might be based around this plot, but oh wait, like just from this tiny clip, it might be based around this plot, but oh wait, that's just a little thing in this like grander scheme.
John, to the thing you said earlier about it being really nice that we finally have a good superhero show again, somebody mentioned My Adventures with Superman, and I am starting to finally watch that, and I am digging on that show too. So like we are maybe getting a resurgence again of some decent superhero cartoons.
Yeah, I watched the pilot, and like I did like it. I forgot to didn't keep up with it. But I think we're like obligated to talk about that now since we do Smallville. Like we just got to do all the Superman stuff.
You know what, John? Let's get it done. Can we make a commitment right now? I'll do it with you. If you'll do, I'll do season overviews with that. If you'll do it with me,
I'm down.
They're short. Those are also what 10, 12 episode seasons.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's 20, 30 minute show. Maybe we'll stream a few episodes instead, but I think we'll do the overview thing. I think that'd be better for that show.
Yeah,
Maybe.
no, I definitely, it's on my list.
We'll commit to doing something with that. John and I do Superman. By God, we're going to do it.
Heck yeah. I've just been distracted with X-Men Evolution, but I'm almost done, so I can move on.
Oh, wow, Jason's only
I'm only
season,
like
I think.
halfway through the first season, if that.
Oh, okay. I think I just started season 4. Okay. But most of the voices for 97 have I just gotten used to them.
Yeah, me too.
Even though, like, I know you had to recast some of them. Magneto bothers me just because like the original voice of Magneto in the original show is like what I think of Magneto sounding.
I think he sounds
like exactly the same, but
Oh, really? I think he sounds really different. Not bad by any means. I think he's really good, but the Wolverine voice is the worst one, and it drives me nuts because Wolverine's my favorite X-Man.
Okay, I'm gonna do my level best to save Wolverine for you. Are you ready?
Okay.
Are you ready? Because I thought about it, and I made fun of it too, and I didn't like it the first few episodes, and then I saw a behind-the-scenes thing on Disney Plus about the show, and he was talking about I can't think of that actor's name right now. Help me out, Jason. Do you remember?
Nope.
That. Okay.
Cal Dodd.
Thank you. Cal Dodd. Okay, so Cal Dodd was talking about how he got the... I think it was in that, or maybe it was another interview I saw. I can't remember. I watched a few different things. But he was talking about getting the role originally back in the early 90s. And he said when he first looked at it, he was like, well, oh cool, this will be easy. He's Canadian. Because Cal Dodd, I think, is Canadian. And... when we were going back and rewatching the show, I was like, if this was exactly what the voice had sounded like the first time around, nobody would think it was weird and making fun of it. He's just more Canadian now.
And
and
what?
it's Wolverine, so like that's actually kind of fine. The problem is just it sounds goofy and weird because it's not what the original sounded like, but he's just going more. It's not even that he sounds too much older. He's just more Canadian.
And
that's
what?
it.
You know what?
I think it's fine, actually, except it just sounds wrong.
That is what most of the actors did, too. Because Rogue sounds more...
Southern. Georgia, wherever she's from, yeah.
And
Is she Georgia? I can't remember.
And Rogue sounds more Cajun.
Well, Rogue...
Not Rogue. Gambit sounds more Cajun.
Yeah.
See, I think Gambit sounds almost the exact same.
He's really close.
He is really close, yeah.
I still don't get...
Dan's Den says Rogue's voice is clearly aged, and I agree with that.
There's no way around that.
The accent is the same, but you can tell the voice is aged, and not in a bad way. Like it's fine. It is what it is.
Louisiana, Georgia.
Yeah. So I have a theory about why Rogue's voice wasn't changed, because I actually have some respect for the producers changing voices and keeping others, and just making it a case by case based on who sounds right and otherwise. Now, with the Jubilee thing, part of it is they wanted a Chinese actress this time, but also some of it might have been age, because who knows if that original actress could still sound like she was 17, right? Like you're going to a younger voice, like still kind of a kid, but with Rogue. I also, in that behind the scenes documentary I watched, which is actually pretty decent for a Disney Plus thing, they say that actress is talking about initially getting the role, and she says they were going crazy trying to cast that, like they could not find the right voice, and when she walked in, she did like a line reading, and all of the producers were like sighing in relief. I think they were probably afraid they could not recast that role because they couldn't find it in the first place. So they were like, we don't care that she sounds 10, 15, 20 years older. We at least she sort of sounds like that character. They probably just thought they wouldn't be able to find anyone, so they didn't even try.
And I don't think she sounds bad.
I don't
by
either.
Any means.
I don't either.
Really, the only one that's distracting is the Wolverine one, which. Like, even then, it doesn't break the immersion or ruin the show for me. It's just that original voice. Like, the original X-Men, the animated series, most of that voice acting is, like, what I hear for X-Men. So anytime it's different, I notice.
It's not like Julie Newmar in doing Catwoman again in Cape Crusaders, where she's just so much older. Some of that is I don't think she had voice experience. But, that was super distracting and didn't work at all. Which was really sad because, I love Julie Newmar, and no offense to Julie Newmar, but that was a problem. This did not have that, but you can tell that actress is aged. Yes. The one that actually, on a rewatch, bothered me the most was Xavier.
Yeah.
Because he's the only one that sounds like a caricature of the original. Where it's like, he's doing a good impression, but he's not giving a performance. Every cadence is exactly the same. It doesn't help that I don't love a lot of the writing they're giving him. Can I go ahead and do my sign flip and stuff real quick? Because I haven't done mine yet.
Yeah.
Because that's a really good segue into that. So I'm feeling
mine
it.
Is green. Sorry, I didn't actually say anything.
Oh yeah, no problem. So yours is green. We're all green. I really liked this overall, of course. I've got my little issues and reservations and stuff, but it's so much better than I thought. Than I think it had any right to be. Really, like I get. Like a lot of us, I'm sure, really antsy about bringing these things back decades later. It very rarely works. We haven't had a lot of really good animation revivals like this. They tend to disappoint people. My biggest fear is this is so popular, they're going to make several seasons and it's going to end on a real sour note. That it cannot stay this good forever. And that, because the showrunner has already left. And I think he wrote or was at least around to work on a lot of season 2. So season 2 will probably be about the same quality-wise, or at least hopefully it will. I mean, that's not a given either, of course. But then after that, I think all bets are kind of off. And it's already been greenlit for a 3rd season.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're in the middle of making 2 right now, and a 3rd is already been announced. So we're going to have the show for a while. Now, will they keep it called X-Men 97 because that's now its own brand recognition, or keep changing the date? I don't know. It seems like they've retroactively now said that basically the whole original series happened within the dates that it did in real life. So it would be very strange if we truncated this entire show into the year 1997. Are we eventually going to deal with like 9/11 in the show and stuff? Like I don't know. Like that's possible. But anyway, I digress. Overall, I was very, very happy with this. I thought it was entertaining all the way through. I was very impressed that episodes that felt one-off initially early on, like the original show, were in fact setting up important story points and giving us character stuff that would be built upon later, and that we would discover that a lot of seemingly kind of random, unrelated subplot things were all building to a grander narrative. I was not really expecting that with this. I think streaming TV in general needs to take notes from the show in how it's structured. There are a couple of kind of one-off episodes or one-off sections that are not all that important, but overall, it's not sagging anywhere. It's not wasting any time.
It's also not a movie stretched out to like 5 hours.
That's exactly.
Like, this is definitely a TV show.
Yeah. And with real episodes that stand on their own, but are building a grander narrative. And it's doing that from the very beginning. It didn't have to find its footing. I mean, it helps that, of course, it's based on an original show that more or less was also kind of trying to do that. But they could have made the mistake of greenlighting 18, 20 episodes in the first place and having a bunch of kind of pointless filler episodes that aren't great. Or it could have been, 12, 13 episodes like a lot of Disney Plus, and just been one kind of, dragged out narrative like you just said. It is not that. And it looks great. And I wasn't sure about the animation when we first got trailers for it. I liked the character models fine, and colorization and stuff, but I just felt like it was kind of the same standard digital stuff we've been getting, and I think like getting all of the action and seeing how it moves and how fluid it is, it actually is benefiting a lot from being as informed by anime as it is. Like, I think it being as anime-esque as it is a real boon for this show. And I think it's really appropriate for this show. And there's a lot of anime inspiration that I didn't notice when I was a kid, because I didn't know about that stuff yet, in the original show, and because of some of the houses they farmed it out to. And so this leans way into that, and I think it works great, especially with the more, creepy, weird, abstract, imagery, and in like weird visions and premonitions and stuff. All of that reads super anime to me.
Yeah.
And it all works really well. My best thing and worst thing are, as I often do, very related. My best thing is Magneto, and my worst thing is Xavier.
Never thought you'd say that.
I never thought I'd say that! Xavier's my favorite character in X-Men. I don't like the way he's handled in this show at all. And
they kind of make him seem really stupid.
Yeah. He feels like a caricature, and some of it's the voice. And some of it is he just feels really one note to me. And Magneto, and I got really tired of him saying my X-Men. Freaking stop it. Just every 6 seconds he says my X-Men. And I realized
and it's even worse.
Magneto does it the first episode. That's the title of it. Yeah.
And Cyclops does it, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then it's never as awesome as that first episode.
With Xavier, it ultimately comes off as, like, really possessive. And then you get that place where Rogue or somebody toward the end says, I wish you wouldn't treat us like students and you treat us more like people. But it's supposed to play endearing many of the times that he says my X-Men. And once she brings that up, I'm like, I think this Xavier is kind of more selfish and morally ambiguous than the show realizes he is. And I like a morally ambiguous Xavier. This is not a calculated one. This one feels, like you said, a little dumb. Because what is the deal? What's the deal with Xavier? What's the deal, John, toward the end when he goes back to the mansion? At least there's some consequences for it, I guess. Because, like, Cyclops doesn't want anything to do with him. Cyclops won't even give him a handshake when he comes back. And Cyclops is like, why on earth did you hand the X-Men, your X-Men, over to Magneto? And he goes, well, I just thought that you and Jean needed a better life and that you didn't need to have to be here anymore. And I'm like, so wait, you're claiming that you hinged the future of humanity and the potential of humans and mutants coexisting
on a psychopath.
Just so
on
that
a psychopath.
Yeah. But just because of a couple of your friends and students that are married and trying to have a baby, like it doesn't make any sense.
Especially if after you say that you're like, oh, I knew you weren't gonna leave the team.
Yeah.
Then why'd you do that?
And then the speeches that he has with Magneto toward the end, I wasn't fully buying would even turn Magneto around. Like, when Magneto grabs the asteroid back, I guess I'm in full spoilers now, but when Magneto grabs the asteroid back, and decides not to, let it crash into the Earth, I'm like, I don't know if I'm 100% buying that Xavier got through to him at all. I mean, his whole argument is just what it's always been, and then that whole bit where he's like, we had a dream, you and I. And I'm like, whatever happened to the X-Men first class of it all? You and I see things very differently. Or like, you don't know me at all. Like, no, my friend, we are not the same. I didn't fully buy that.
So it seems,
but I think Magneto
me,
was wonderfully layered, and I'm with him a lot.
Yes.
And
so
he's
it
almost
just seemed
my
to
favorite
me like
Magneto
the
now.
natural progression for this was that Xavier stays dead, at least for a while. Magneto's arc stays the same, where he eventually falls back on his old ways. And then you just have Scott become the leader. Like, Scott starts to run the X-Men, and he kind of fills that Xavier role for a while. You don't need to bring I didn't feel like you needed to bring Xavier back, at least not yet.
No, and that's a terrific point. And if you were gonna bring him back, you should have brought him back evil in the first place. Because if you know anything about 90s X-Men comics, it's clear from pretty early that we're building to Onslaught. And I was shocked that we didn't get to Onslaught by the end of the season. I really thought that's where it was all going. I thought the big fight at the very end of this was going to be Bastion either gets taken out or creates Onslaught on purpose. And Onslaught would be a, merger of Xavier and Magneto, and that's how we were going to finally, deal with or conclude their ideological argument together. Was going to be, we just mashed them together and they have an internal conflict, and then the X-Men have to fight that as a horrifying entity.
Yeah.
Now, that's not what it is in the comics, but Bastion in this is not what he was in the comics either. And there's a lot of nods to Onslaught. Bastion is in the background of that story and involved with that stuff. And I went back and I read up a little bit on the Onslaught story today. I don't know if you guys know anything about that story, but the big event that initially leads to the creation of Onslaught is Xavier using his powers to shut Magneto down. And then through the course of getting in his mind and doing all of that, he ends up accidentally creating this terrible entity that's like a fusion of their two personalities that becomes Onslaught. But the catalyst that makes him shut down Magneto is Magneto ripping out the adamantium spine of Wolverine, which he nearly does in this.
Yeah.
They are building
I don't think it was nearly. He just straight up does it.
Does it come out?
No,
Yeah, because you see, and they kind of cheat with it,
doesn't
because
come out,
they
but
get
it
around the
breaks.
censorship by making it just like a still image, but it's Wolverine, and then there's like liquid metal all around him, which I thought was the implication was that the adamantium has been ripped out of him.
I
Maybe
thought it
so.
just
That's
got
what-
like broken apart.
That's what it is in the comics.
inside of him.
But regardless of that, they clearly took that from that story.
Yeah.
They're thinking Onslaught all the way through this. The big like metal wings that Bastion has at the end of this looks like a nod to the big Onslaught like back thing.
And I had never heard of him before this show, so I was very confused when we got to the end. I was like, I don't know who this is.
Well, and again, in the comics, he's a totally different thing. Like, I don't think he's ever a like human Sentinel like they make him in this. But the policy that they're doing in the background, with again the Friends of Humanity and all of that, the Operation Zero Tolerance thing, is a Bastion thing. But in the comics, he's like developing that as a politician. And I was surprised, and I actually think it might have worked better if I was surprised that Bastion was not introduced as a human politician that would then give us a big twist where, oh my god, he was a human Sentinel all along. Why wasn't he just introduced at the beginning, working like in the White House, like Stryker in X2? Like, it's really weird that his introduction is he's been in the background all along, and he's actually the big bad, and Mr. Sinister is just working for him. And the way he's introduced, it's almost like we're supposed to be familiar with him, because he has that line, right, where he's like, you've got all these villains of the X-Men that never evolve. I was once one of them, but I have evolved. And I'm like, which one were you? What the hell are you talking about? And then, like, that's never talked about again. I went and did some research, and he's not anywhere. Like, he wasn't a character, I don't think, that then becomes this Bastion guy. So I don't know what he's talking about.
And I got, so...
Oh, Tyler says Bastion with the wings is a look he has later. Okay, I didn't know he ever did the supervillain. I just read up on him and saw the politician stuff. I've never read comics with him in them, to be fair. I just know that he's involved in the Onslaught stuff. Because when I was a kid, I read a few issues here and there about Onslaught while that was happening. But I've never read that whole story.
I just haven't gotten there yet with X-Men.
Yeah, I've never read that whole story.
And also, RJ Godzilla says, Magneto tried to take over the world when he heard you die, Charles. What is wrong with you? He even tried helping Apocalypse rewrite the space-time continuum. And then I'm gonna combine that with AMC says, I think it is Xavier trying to force Magneto to try and be better. I think that's the idea, but I don't think that works when he's still alive. It just makes him look stupid. Like, I'm gonna fake my death so my friend will be better. No, it should have been, this is my legitimate dying wish, and like, you don't bring Xavier back and he wants Magneto to be better, but human action has forced Magneto's hand.
And he's still giving Magneto way too much power, and he's trusting him way too much to do that. You know, like, it makes him look idealistic in the wrong way, where it's like, does he believe in people, or is he this selfish guy that has a tough time with change and really needs his best friend to be who he always thought he was? Because if he's not, and if Magneto deep down doesn't believe in Xavier's dream, it makes Xavier wrong about him and says something bad about Xavier. Like, the whole thing looks a little covert narcissistic to me. That's not what's
No, yeah, pretty
intended,
much.
but that's kind of
But
how it reads.
the villain thing also, I didn't think about it until you said something. That's very Disney Plus and Netflix, right? Like, we have to save the big bad for a big reveal like a few episodes in, even if that means that we can't develop them enough. Because I don't know if it's just me. I still don't quite understand his Bastion's motivations at the end,
I
because
don't
he's
either.
only in 2 episodes.
He's in 4, but he's only, we only get any screen time with him for a couple of episodes, yeah.
So,
go ahead, yeah.
I don't like Bastion.
Yes, but would you explain his motivations for us, Jayson?
No.
Oh,
and that is
oh,
why
oh.
I don't.
Come on, JC, you're the X-Men expert here.
That is part of the reason why I don't
Hold
like
on,
Bastion.
hold on. I gotta read this comment real quick. AMC says he was Nimrod that evolved. No, not really, though, right? Because Nimrod just infected his DNA. That was all very convoluted. But Nimrod came back from the future or something. I forget what exactly it was, and infected his mother, and so he's at birth a human sentinel.
Yes.
I don't think he is Nimrod.
No, he's not.
Okay. So his line still makes no sense to me.
Yeah. So I like his characterization. I think he's cool, but there's no reason for him to exist in this series. I don't think.
It should have just been Mr. Sinister, right?
Yeah. So I don't like how...
I don't like that Sinister was subordinate to another guy. Because it was high time for Sinister to really get his time to shine like this. Partly because in the original series they really do him dirty in that last season, and partly because we spent 3 movies in the actual movies building up to him, and then we never got him. Don't do the Bane Dark Knight Rises thing with him. Let him be the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about Sinister, but he was much more interesting in this show than Bastion.
Yeah, and I don't like Sinister in the original show because he doesn't get much to do. And so I was like, oh, he's the main bad. Or so I thought. And he doesn't, but he still doesn't get anything to do. And, the stuff that he does do in, episode 3 with their mansion coming alive and trying to eat him, right?
That was cool.
Yeah. That stuff's cool. And then he ends up just not even being the big bad, and it's just this random Sentinel guy that, and I'm also not the biggest Sentinel fan. I think we kind of, I don't, season 1 isn't my favorite stuff in the show, and, I think this season did, the Sentinel stuff pretty well, but I don't know why we needed to do Bastion.
You're not a big fan of Nimrod.
No, I'm not the biggest fan of Nimrod.
Okay.
And I don't know why we had to do the whole zombie thing. I don't know. I would much rather have
that feels kind of overdone.
Big battle against Sinister, or a big or have Sinister make everyone zombies. Sinister can do that.
Yeah, or why couldn't you have switched it where Sinister is the big bad guy and Bastion is his magnum opus, right?
Yeah.
Let him just, and I don't mean to rewrite the thing, I know I always say that, but isn't that, it would have been more satisfying to go with the story that they were developing, I think. I think the twist that it wasn't Sinister all along is a little lame.
Yeah.
When the guy that you put in was this random person that the majority of fans have not heard of, and fans that do know who that is, I don't think any of them were going, yay, Bastion!
Yeah, because, for a big comeback season of a classic show, I would think you would want to make it a villain from that show.
And it doesn't have to be a big surprise. The surprise could have been... Sinister made the Jean Grey clone. Sorry, I'll let you keep going in a second. With Madeline Pryor, and remember he says he tried her a bunch of times and finally got it right. And then she had Nathan, and Nathan had the technovirus, and that was supposed to make him invulnerable. And it didn't work; it just made him sick. So they had to send him to the future. But this new full-on human Sentinel that he's able to develop in working with Trask could have just been what Sinister built after that didn't work. Like after Nathan didn't work, right? Just do that.
And the other thing that made me mad was his whole thing is Purple People Eater, right? Where he loves that song, right? And you know what made me really mad?
I know where you're going with this.
That did not is because like it's a big reveal where he turns around and it's this random guy Bastion. Okay. I'm like, yeah, Purple Man. And it's not Purple Man. And Purple Man's my favorite character, and it's not Purple Man. And I thought that would have been also like sure, if you're going to do the fake out like villain, sure, but make him interesting. You know, I didn't think Bastion was that interesting. Do Purple Man, and you can still do the zombie thing.
And
with Purple Man.
And if Sinister has to be subordinate to somebody, it's a lot cooler with Purple Man because that's his power, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he's just been controlling Sinister all along. Which, I mean, could be lame or it could be really cool just depending on how you do it. John, I don't know if you know about this, but season 4, there is a one-off episode with Purple Man, and it's great.
Yeah, and it's a Cyclops episode.
Oh, interesting. No, the only time I've ever seen Purple Man is Jessica Jones.
I figured, and that's why I felt the need to tell you that that's what he's talking about. He's not saying because of Jessica Jones or comics. He's saying Purple Man is an X-Men villain with this show one time.
And that the only episode that he's in the original show is a Cyclops-centered episode.
Yeah.
And this is a Cyclops-centered show for
this show made me a fan of Cyclops. Like, I didn't hate Cyclops, but he's never been one of my favorites. I think he's one of the best characters in this show, especially in the first half.
I will say I don't love the way he deals with Madeline Pryor initially, but other than that,
see, and that I don't entirely disagree. If you're gonna do that, I kind of wish they'd just done like. Because a lot of that is looking, like I said earlier, is looking at Morrison. Just have it be Emma Frost.
Yeah, well, I'm more just talking about the way he responds to it, where like he just kind of stands there and doesn't say anything, and then he's not even attempting to like console her or anything. Like I thought he was, and maybe they were trying to make a statement with him in like how. Kind of stolid and cut off from his emotions he is and stuff. And there's a little bit in the way of consequences for that in the second half when he has that interview on television about it. But in the moment, I was like, wow, you're really unsympathetic for, I feel like, not enough of a good reason. And then in the second half, when he and Jean would talk about Madeline Pryor, I just felt like something was off about some of those conversations where, whereas, and it is a melodrama and it is a soap opera, and obviously I got to take it on different terms from traditional narrative with those things. But even in the context of the melodrama with this show, some of that was too far in the melodramatic direction to me. Into kind of typical TV stuff where Jean would be like, you still love her, don't you? I'm like, well, what Cyclops' response should be is, well, she was you up until like 5 days ago. So like, and he says like, I love you both, but what he really should say is, you were the same person up to a point.
Yeah, and then also, like, the worst part about that is Jean says that like 5 minutes after kissing Wolverine.
Yeah. So then neither of them is especially sympathetic right there. Why does she make out with Wolverine in that scene? Why does that even happen? Would somebody explain that to me?
To continue that love triangle.
I think you're right. And I predict that they will have like an honest to God affair the next season. I think they'll finally just do that.
I mean, I feel like I've seen this love triangle 100 times now, and they all go the same way. So sure, like just go for it.
We should do some predictions at the end of the show. I have a couple things that I'm expecting to happen, but while we're there, can we? Because there's a thing that you and I wanted to make sure we talked about.
Yes.
And we're kind of there now, so I think we should bring it up real quick.
Yes.
Which is
a litter of Allura-side.
I can't believe you remember that.
Gigi, I hope I said that right. Ask us how many times each of us watched the season.
Well, you said 2.5.
I've seen it 2.5 times.
I actually technically have seen it 2.5 times also, I guess.
I have watched it 2.5 times. Yep.
Yeah, Cap was like giving me a hard time about it. We've all watched it 2.5
No, I
times.
wasn't. No, I wasn't. I wanted to know what half you saw. If for some reason you went back to like the middle of it and what. No.
Well, I've watched I've watched the first half
the
like 3
difference
times.
Is you weren't on the commentary stream. 2.5
That's
because
true.
we watched part of it on stream.
Okay, I've watched the first half.
That wasn't even half though.
I've watched the first half 4 times, and I've watched the last half 2 times.
Yeah, I've seen the pilot I think 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah,
It's a great pilot.
it is.
But anyway, no, I wanted to talk to you, Jason, about carbon dating.
Yeah. What was that about?
Can we talk about carbon dating for a minute, John? So,
Let's do it.
okay. John, do you have any idea where I'm going with this?
I do not.
Okay, so third episode. Have we already been at this an hour? We haven't even said least favorite episodes yet.
No.
John, there's a part toward the very beginning of the third episode where we've done the cliffhanger with Madeline Pryor, and it's like, oh my God, there's another Gene. Really great soap opera kind of moment. And Beast does he looks in his microscope and he does a little science, and he goes, effectively, I have carbon dated the other Gene at the microscopic level, he says. And she is the real Jean Grey because the Jean Grey that has been here is clearly much, much younger. And then after that, there's all of this throughout the season philosophical musing about which Jean might have gone through certain things that happened during the series. Now, I get that they both have the same memories, so there's an identity question of, like, did it count for me if I'm remembering things I wasn't really there for? But they are sometimes, I think, talking physically about which one was there. There's a place in that episode where somebody says, I can't remember who, we're not sure which one was even the Phoenix. And I'm going, he carbon dated it at the microscopic level, which means he knows exactly how old she is.
So, speaking of
Should
Beast,
be to the day or the hour.
That is a good point. But can I just say that I love this version of Beast.
He's so
not
good.
only does
he's great.
Not only does he basically sound like the original,
Well,
but out of all of
the
them,
original, it is the same voice, and that
okay.
guy just doesn't seem to have aged in his voice. He sounds perfect.
He has all the like Stan Lee dialogue.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is now, but he says something in one of the later episodes when he's surprised or finds something, and I'm like, that's just Stan Lee dialogue. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's perfectly written all the way through. There's not a place where I don't like what he says, and I have so much respect for their giving him a line where he quotes Mr. Rogers, who's like a personal hero of mine, and the line they give him is one of the most important like tenets of Mr. Rogers' philosophy, when he says, look for the helpers, and then he says, the affable Mr. Rogers, and I just kind of lost it.
Yeah.
Like, that was a big moment for me. I was like,
And
Beast
also-
quoted Mr. Rogers, I can die happy. Like, that was
Also,
wonderful.
Throwing like Mr. Rogers into like X-Men is a really like
Perfect.
yeah, it's a cool idea, you know, just to like kind of get you thinking, you know.
If Mr. Rogers had ever thought to read or watch X-Men, he would have loved X-Men.
Yeah.
It should have been his favorite superhero thing. As it was, he was leery of superheroes because he was afraid of children jumping off roofs thinking they could fly.
Okay.
So it wasn't really... I've actually thought about doing a stream where I read the few... like written responses that Fred Rogers had about the superhero phenomenon in comics and television in the 70s, because some of it I actually like deeply disagree with because he just doesn't know what he's talking about. And so I've thought about talking about that, where I'm like, I have one big criticism of Mr. Rogers, and it's what he says about superheroes. I also have issues with what he says about video games too, but that's neither here nor there.
So There's also a really funny line in
I'm very critical
the,
of everything, John.
I think it's the ninth episode where he goes to propose the question, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And then he just slaps a sentinel in the face with his own hand.
Freaking good. And
I love Beast, as specifically this version of Beast.
And then when you say this version, he's exactly as he was in the original show. I would say,
yeah. I mean, I'm loving the original '90s show and this, like, just this Beast.
Okay, sure. Well, because I feel like with certain characters, you could say this version versus the original show. Where we can quibble about whether they've evolved into this or if they've just changed for the sake of. I think they feel like the same characters, but they're just aged and grown up, maybe, or evolved now, like Jubilee. Like Rogue, but with Beast, he's precisely the same character. He's written
precisely.
Of everybody in the show, I think he's the most as he was.
I think the only one that really felt off to me, just as a different character. Granted, I've only seen him in the pilot episode, but like their morph feels completely different to me.
Yeah,
I actually really like what they did with Morph. It was a way to get cameos in, but like it works.
I did not mind the fan service they did with that. And did you have the thing I did where very often Morph would turn into somebody in a scene and I'd go, oh wow, we got Psylocke. Oh wait, it's Morph. Like I kept doing that. Like I actually bought it.
I thought that was really clever. I was more so confused. Like why did in their normal form? Why do they look like that now? Or am I misremembering
Morph
that show?
Decided at some point to have a different look.
That's how it looks in the comics.
No, I know, but it's the only character that we did a straight up like different design for.
True.
And there's one place where Morph turns into the version from the show for a minute.
And Morph does both. So
yes, and that's a really sad scene because they're talking about Mr. Sinister.
Yeah.
And he's referencing, I'm assuming, I haven't gotten there yet, but I do know that at some point, like, he's under the control of Mr. Sinister or something.
But I can't remember the name of the episode. But
season 3?
It's season 2, episode 1 and 2.
Oh, is that early?
It's the first episode of season 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
The coolest thing this show does with Morph, though, is, like, showing just how broken that power set is. I didn't realize he could, like, use the powers of people he transformed into.
Me neither.
I'm not sure about that either. Like that seems way too powerful. And
awesome.
How does it work? Yeah,
and actually, it was cool when he started like actually turning into just Marvel characters too.
You know where I felt like it was going too far though? When Morph turns into Mr. Fantastic toward the end and he's stretching like that, and I'm like, I don't know. Do I really buy that power set?
I don't know about that.
But anyway.
Also, if you have Morph, does that mean like you just don't need Mystique because they have the same powers?
Where the hell is she through this whole season?
I don't know. It was very strange.
Where is she?
Because you have that whole subplot with Nightcrawler, who is also awesome in this.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And that's the original voice too, and he's not skipped a beat. Holy crap.
Oh, okay. I have seen one Nightcrawler episode. It was on one of those VHS.
Well, there's only like 3.
There's only...
okay.
Yeah, 3.
There's very few. The big Nightcrawler episode is his introduction with the Wolverine at the church. And that's why
that's the one I had because it was the Wolverine collection.
And that's why they have such a bond. And he makes Wolverine think very hard about like religion and spirituality and stuff in that, which is great. One of the best scenes I think in the whole season, tell me if you guys agree with it, is his eulogy for Gambit.
Yes.
It's so well written.
Yes.
And there are places where I'm not real happy with the writing in the show. I feel like they've got a couple of kind of types of... I want to go back. I should have done this and look at who wrote each episode. Yeah. Because when you get to episode 6, which I'll just say right now I think is the weakest episode, with Xavier in space, with Lilandra and the Shi'ar and all of that, it starts to get kind of like sappy and overwritten in the wrong kind of ways. And that starts to blend into some of even the better episodes as it goes along. And I'm like, there is there's a weaker writer in here that we keep going to
So-
that it feels like was not there earlier, and
Okay,
I don't know
there
if
are
that's true.
There,
But
there are like
So I have the episode list pulled
Yeah,
up just
me
as
too.
like a reference.
am I
Me too.
right?
Something
Me too.
interesting that I noticed as
Yes.
you were saying that.
It's that-
episode
it's that
6
Charlie
is the first
Feldman.
one that showrunner is not involved with in the
yeah,
writing.
yep.
Called it.
And there are like 4 writers, and that main guy is mainly writing and co-writing with this other guy who did episode 6 by himself.
There you go.
And the main guy, DeMaio, he did
Yeah.
did the first 5 episodes, and then he went
And
back.
he's the guy that
for-
left, I think.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
he
he
is.
went back for the 3-part at the end.
What'd I tell you?
And it's that second half that goes down.
Yeah. Okay.
And he
and
co-writes 8 and 10, and he's not even on episode
but does
9.
he co-write those with the writer from 6?
No, with a completely different guy
Oh,
who
okay.
wasn't even on.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, but the writer of 6 also does 7. Well, the writer of 6 worked on multiple episodes, but that's the only one that I can see they have a solo credit on.
Yeah.
AMC says he argues Rogue Knight in 97 feels like a different character than TAS. I don't
Yeah.
entirely agree.
I do agree.
They evolve her to a different place midway through the show.
Yeah, I mean, she's not a completely different character.
Well,
but she's
here's
evolved.
the $100,000 question, John. Do we buy that the Rogue from the original show had that background with Magneto?
That's the big thing that
Yes.
kind of makes me hesitate, because I didn't know if that was in the original show at all.
No, it wasn't.
But it
feels like
apparently
something
it is
that
in the
show would do.
comics, because I asked Dan, I was like, was this ever a thing? And he said yes, there was a point where it was a thing in the comics, but
Right.
it does kind of feel out of left field.
It feels
I
retconny
didn't
for that
hate it.
show, though.
It feels like a thing that the show would do. It feels like a season 3 or season 4 thing.
It also feels icky in the way it might have felt in that show, which I really respect. Like, it's supposed to feel off and kind of creepy. He looks 3 times her age!
Yeah, I mean, I like that at the end of the day, it's presented like this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think she's making the wrong choice, but I understand why she's making that choice.
Yep.
More so, it's a little weird that he kind of basically forces her hand into doing this.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, that's the place where he's maybe least sympathetic.
Yes.
And when she goes off on him and says, so wait, you wanted to make me your like queen, your like co-leader of Genosha because you thought I would get back together with you. And then she very nearly does it. It might be the first time I've ever seen a love triangle where we try to fake the audience out into thinking that we killed 2 people in the love triangle at the same time. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen that before.
Also, why can she touch him?
Okay, so I can't tell you. And what I think is really funny is the Magneto at the end of... If that worked in every X-Men continuity, Magneto in the first X-Men movie's plan does not work. He wouldn't be able to do it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it about being able to control metal and having, like, magnetism that makes it so that Rogue can touch him and it doesn't drain his energy?
Yeah, what about that has to do with magnetism?
And does he have to, like...
Electromagnetic
And if he has to
powers.
magnetize himself constantly so that she can touch him, how does it not affect her in any way?
Yeah.
No.
Maybe
I
it
mean,
wouldn't.
I'm
Maybe it would
saying
just be like
episode 5
sleeping
is
with a
my favorite
giant
episode.
magnet, I guess. I don't know. Sorry, what, John?
So I guess I'll just say it here. Episode 5 is probably my favorite episode of the show. But that's the one thing where it's like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, can we go through episodes?
It's a nice visual, though.
It is. Well, and the cliffhanger in that is killer. It's
Yes.
so well done.
Which is what makes episode 6 really hard to sit through.
Yeah, it sure
Oh,
does.
can I mention something about episode 6 real quick?
Yeah.
Because this is a thing that I kind of realized. John, if you don't know, the original X-Men series was I don't know if you know where I'm going with this.
I don't.
But the original X-Men series was
You're just gonna give us a
broadcasted
dissertation on
very
the entire...
out of order.
Yes.
And season 3 and season 4 were very mixed up, and when they first came out on Disney Plus, they were still in that broadcast order and not in the order that they were originally meant to be.
And John, it's a problem all the way to, in one episode, the mansion is destroyed before it's destroyed.
Yeah. And then
Like, how the hell did that happen?
And then when X-Men 97 came out, they fixed it on Disney Plus. I think that's a nod to that, because they do Life Death Part 1, and then they do Remember It, and then they do Life Death Part 2.
Yeah.
And it's a very, different change of pace, and very...
So you think that's intentional? I
They're-
mean, it is
they're-
just a subplot that interrupts the action for a minute, and then it all converges at the end of that
And it's
episode.
Part 1 and Part 2, though,
It's so weird.
I think that might be intentional, but I don't know.
Yeah, so...
It reminds me of that.
Let's also talk about Life Death for a second, because it's not only weird that you have an episode in between, but it's weird that you have that Life Death is half of an episode that has another little episode in it with a different name, which is Motendo. And so that's just a little, like, one-off fun adventure with Sunspot and Jubilee being sucked into a video game so we can do a bunch of 90s nostalgia. There's big missed opportunities in that. It bothers me that when they go in that video game and they have Magneto, he doesn't say welcome to die. You've made a giant mistake if Magneto does not say welcome to die. I'm sorry, there's no point in making the episode if Magneto does not say that.
Well, and I think episode 4 is my least favorite because I don't care about either subplot.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I also don't understand the Storm subplot.
Yeah,
Like, after a point, like, what is that thing chasing her?
And then how the heck does she get her powers back?
So the thing chasing her is a demon from the comics that is actually connected to Forge in the comics.
Oh.
I don't know much more beyond that. I just know that it and Forge have a connection. But I have no idea how she gets her powers back. And that's a place where it waxes sappy in the wrong way. I don't like that it turns into the Spider-Man 2 thing, kind of, where it's, she doesn't have her powers because she doesn't believe in her powers anymore, even though it's even worse than that, though, because there's a instrument that does it to her that Forge invented, which is why he's involved, because he feels guilty about it. And I was okay with all of that.
Thing.
Yeah, and I was all right with that. But then the thing that gets her powers back is she just gets...
Power of anime and friendship? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just gets her mojo back. She's, like, not to be confused with mojo. She just gets her confidence back. And then she's got her powers. And it's like, okay, well then did she ever fully lose them? So wait, you're telling me that what Forge created, on accident even, this genius that can just think... I love that line he has toward the end where he's like, I thought about it, and then he makes the thing happen. That's great. But like, so that guy who can invent anything, that's his superpower. By the way, in the original show, I had no idea what Forge's powers were. He was just the guy that stood next to a time portal. I had no idea what his power set was.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that guy accidentally made a machine that takes away your powers by making you think that you have lost your powers. Like, I mean, that can't be actually what it does.
It's literally the X3 thing. Magneto loses his powers from being shot with a thing that suppresses his powers. And at the end, somehow he got his powers back.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. You're absolutely right. I was reminded really hard by the end of X2 with everything that happens in the finale. Like, there's so much X2 and all of that. Where like Magneto.
Well, they straight up referenced the movies in one scene. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I didn't need that, honestly.
What was that?
The black leather bit.
Oh.
Is it, what did you expect, black leather? It's a callback to what you expect, yellow spandex.
Yeah.
I didn't need to flip it like that. But
I hate that.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine, I guess. But anyway, Yeah, I mean, in X3, you can just assume that at some point it wears off. And maybe that's what happened with this, but it's not treated like it wears off.
No, it's not.
It's treated like she beat the bird, and then she got her powers back.
Yeah.
I can't wait for somebody to try to explain this in the comments. Oh, Gigi sort of is. Sorry, Cap, mental blocks are a real thing, LOL. Yeah, sure. And I've gone rounds with people about this with Spider-Man 2, and I don't want to get back into those arguments again. But
I mean, the difference here, though, is she is physically stripped of her powers by like a weapon. It's not a mental block. It can't be.
Yeah, that's not what it does.
Yeah, and AMC generates a new costume.
Yeah, can we talk about the costume thing?
And hair?
Yeah, so Storm getting her powers back also gives her the ability to grow her hair out and no longer have a mohawk. I don't know how that works. And it changes her costume. And then, John, I will, and I mean this, John, I will send you $20 if you can explain to me. I'm not making it higher in case he has something in his back pocket.
This is what I was talking about at the beginning with random things that they just did. For
no reason.
No reason.
So, for, fan service and stuff, but not any story reason. John, explain to me what the point is of the X-Men all going back to their old school Silver Age costumes at the end. Why do they put those on? And if you can BS symbolic reason, I will give you $20. But I cannot read this. I have no idea why they do that.
Because this whole season they have been separated and haven't really been acting like a team. They kind of set that up in the first few episodes. Now there is a new threat to the Earth. They have all come back together, and they are a team like the classic X-Men days.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I don't know if that's a $20 explanation, John.
That's fine. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I could come up with, too. Like, it doesn't seem to really mean anything.
And it's really funny with Wolverine because he doesn't get to do anything.
No, and it's awkward. Look, I like getting to see him in the brown and everything, but it's just weird. They don't even talk about it.
No, they just do it.
There's no reason they all do. And then some of them don't even have outfits from that period.
Yeah, so they just get a random new outfit because Jubilee gets her black costume thing that she just buys at the mall.
Gigi says, sorry, go ahead.
It's awkward with Jean because she's too old to be wearing that Silver Age costume. It just looks weird.
Yeah.
And I think Cyclops' Silver Age costume is a straight downgrade from that 90s costume.
One thing
I like the Silver Age one, but the 90s one is so much cooler.
One thing you got to give the show is that and how hard was it? They finally fixed the weird, maybe we talked about this in that commentary.
I think we did,
but they finally fixed the weird flesh-colored thing with the Jean Grey outfit, where they just made it yellow now, which is what it always should have been. There's so much yellow in the show already.
So I have a continuity question for you, because you guys are more familiar with the original show. Does it make sense for the Stan Lee era lineup of X-Men to have existed in this universe?
I want to say that is established already pretty early, that when we get to Angel, it's he used to be on the team.
Yes, there's a flashback.
And they do they do it with Iceman too?
There's a flashback in the Iceman episode.
And John, I think that something akin to the classic picture that we see in the show even is in that show somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's in the Iceman episode.
I know some of the Claremont characters are never officially a part of the team in this continuity, not Cyclops, Colossus, Nightcrawler, obviously.
Right.
So I wasn't sure if in the original continuity this was the only lineup of the X-Men, or if there had been
No, they make it generational.
Family.
Yeah,
that's cool.
They make it generational. They have founding members. Okay, Gigi says, let me hit a couple of what's the word I'm looking for? Logic things. Forge machine gave her power back, and then Storm also had to get over her mental block to use them again. Is that what's supposed to happen? Because I didn't think his machine did anything.
Oh, well, she does say later that it was all thanks to Forge.
Yeah,
so
but it didn't seem to be. I didn't think. I missed something with that, clearly. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. it's just placed in a really bad spot. It's like I just want to get back to what's going on with Genosha. And
Yeah, and the problem
It is one of the subplots that feels like it's just, and I don't want to say, because I said earlier there's not a lot of padding in the show.
Yeah.
But that is maybe the one place where it does feel like we got to jump to another subplot to make the audience like really salivate for the good stuff.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I have that with all of episode 4. I don't like that Jubilee, that part at all, like the video game stuff.
at least all of it in some way matters, though. I mean, I appreciate that.
I think it was the best.
Even the video game episode, I like by the end of that, that's supposed to set up the romance with them. Like they're doing stuff everywhere.
I don't know if you saw it, but earlier in the chat, people were saying that the older Jubilee in that episode is the original voice actor.
Yes.
Which I did not
or
know.
actress.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that they did that.
Yeah.
And she's actually been like someone that I know from a lot of stuff.
Oh, really?
She's in the original like PS1 Resident Evil games. And she was on a couple like real little kid shows that I watched when I was like 4 or 5 that I have fake memories of.
She voices somebody else in the show too, and I don't know who.
She was in a bunch of little kid shows, and she was in Resident Evil.
Oh.
Yeah, she's in Resident Evil 2. She is Claire Redfield.
And then RJ Godzilla says, "Okay, if this is the case, I just don't think they made it clear enough, or maybe I'm just an idiot." But he says their other costumes were destroyed in the mansion, and those costumes were all they had left.
Oh,
You know, that's actually I can see that being it.
That's probably what it is.
Because you remember,
did they make that explicit enough?
when the mansion blows up? Like at least I remember Cyclops. His costume is all torn up.
yeah. But they don't say anything about it.
Yeah,
like,
they don't say anything.
Communicate.
And also, like, this isn't the kind of show where I expect them to just switch costumes for battle damage. I expect them to just show up with a copy of the same costume.
Yeah, or to just show up in their plain clothes, because they do that a lot in the old show.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even need uniforms. They'll just be like, I'm gonna wear the jeans and the jean jacket I was wearing earlier.
Well, and
they should have just had a big fight in their basketball gear. That would have been great.
Especially like with Wolverine. Has he ever worn that orange suit before in this continuity?
No.
I don't know.
There might be a flashback episode that brings it back.
I
that brings it up.
remember.
I know he's got a different
is it
military suit when he's
Venom
fighting
Man?
with Captain America. I think.
Yeah.
So that's different. Oh, Captain America's in the show for 6 seconds.
Yeah.
He is.
That's
This
kinda
has a
random.
lot of Marvel cameos, and also I saw something earlier, and I found it funny because we were just you were talking about the continuity errors that people pointed out.
Yeah.
Apparently, so you know that shot of Black Panther that's in this show?
Yeah.
Apparently, that's not T'Challa. That's T'Chaka.
No,
T'Chaka.
Yeah, because he's referred to as T'Chaka in the show.
Apparently, he died in the Fantastic Four show.
T'Chaka did.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and see, I'm hearing
But
people
also, like,
complain
How many
that.
people watched that?
Well, sure, but and like not to get too deep in the sauce with it, but they're doing versions that look like all of that continuity. Because for people that don't know, that was a shared continuity, as loose as it might have felt. And it held together decently well. So I mean, it was like the DCAU in that it all happened together. And so it is a little bit egregious if he died in another show, and really kind of pushes home. And I've heard a lot of people complain about this, that Marvel is really trying to push out to like the original T'Challa as a character because their actor died. And, like, I just fundamentally don't agree with that. So it feels like, what else would the motivation be for doing that in this show?
But man, I want a Doctor Strange show in this animation.
Well, Doctor
You
Strange
get him for
is
like
in...
3 seconds in this show, and it looks awesome.
Well, he's in Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
And he looks like he does in that show.
I've seen more Spider-Man than I have X-Men, but that was the same situation where it was just VHS tapes that I had.
The only characters that I'm not sure appeared in anything in those 90s shows that are here is you get Cloak and Dagger, which was really exciting to me, just because they're really looking at their 90s stuff. Cloak and Dagger were kind of big then, and they were in Maximum Carnage, and they might have shown up in Fantastic Four or the Hulk show, or one of those shows that I didn't watch. But if they didn't, and they just threw them in there because it's 97 and it's right after Maximum Carnage. That's really cool that they thought to do that.
Was Daredevil on the show?
Yeah, Daredevil's got a
he's
2-part
in
Spider-Man
Spider-Man.
episode.
Oh.
That's very, or is it just one? Maybe it's just one
I
part.
haven't seen that much Spider-Man.
I think it's just one.
I think it is. But it's
a
really
good
good.
episode.
Yeah, and he looks just like he did there, and no, it's all of that stuff was exciting, and I like that it's not too gimmicky, because first of all, they don't do everybody necessarily you would expect. It's cool Cloak and Dagger are there, like they've got nice deep pull stuff, but also, I think a lot of people felt the way or expected what I did, which was surely Deadpool gets an episode this season, and he's not even referenced. He's referenced in the original show in one place.
God.
Well, you say that, but it would be really interesting to see them do 90s Deadpool in this, because I am confident that they would make him
A character?
a little different. Yeah, that he'd be
Yes.
more like
I mean, to be
whatever
fair,
they
I
might
just
have
don't
done
like
then.
Deadpool.
No, that's cool, but I mean, he's a different thing right after Rob Liefeld creates him.
Yeah. And that might win me over.
People
But,
in the
like-
comments are saying that Daredevil was also in FF, which I did not realize.
Yeah, I never watched FF. That would be interesting. The only thing that I would say, the trouble with doing a Deadpool episode is I'd want that to be more of a Wolverine episode, because obviously those two come from kind of similar backgrounds. And they clearly can't go as far as you need to go to make that interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're pushing, violence envelopes and stuff farther than I thought they might. So
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm down to be proven wrong.
They got-
Cloak and Dagger were not in the MAU.
well, that's
So-
cool.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Jason, what is your favorite episode?
So my favorite episode was Remember It, episode 5. But I watched it with you again.
Oh, did I mess it up for
And
you?
you messed it up for me because you said like all the things that were kind of that didn't work, and it kind of
Like with Magneto and Rogue, or
and with like the stuff with Cyclops, and like I don't know what he's talking about when he's doing the interview, and he's like, I don't remember what it was, but there was something weird.
There's a couple of non sequitur things where people would explain their motivations, and I'm like, that had nothing to do with the reason you did that. What are you talking about?
Well, the Cyclops thing was
No,
just he was
he's
still
saying-
bitter about
no,
the
no.
doctor.
No, he's saying that it was, yeah, but he's saying that it was Human's fault that his kid had to like go to the future.
Yeah, he goes, I sent my kid to the future, something to save humanity, or because of
Well, I would
something
assume
humans
that
were
the
doing.
virus, he's talking about the virus spreading.
I'm gonna go
But
back
that
and
was-
find the exact moment,
No.
because the thing he said made no sense, but I
but
don't remember the quote right now.
No, he's like, it was humanity's fault.
Yeah.
But the problem is, that was just Sinister. And, like, he doesn't really count as humanity, so...
For a minute... Oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
But to be fair, the show also does make a point of showing that like that's kind of just him his breaking point. I don't think you can expect him to be making sense. He's just kind of lashing out.
I just wasn't trusting the writing right there, because there's a couple other places in that episode where I'm like, that doesn't follow.
That's fair.
So, you're not wrong, but it felt awkward. I don't know.
I did like a lot of things about that episode. I will say, I think episode 2 is my favorite episode.
Mine too.
That Magneto speech
It's
is killer. And
Episode 2 is very good.
it is the best writing in the whole show. And it really makes me like Magneto way more than I did, because I'm not the biggest Magneto guy.
Yep.
Least favorite episode is episode 6. I'm never watching that thing again. I had to watch that thing like 2 or 3 times because I forgot what happened in it, and I had to watch it again for this show, and I am never watching that again.
Yeah, my least favorite is 6.
Episode 6 is so frustrating because it's like, you come right after arguably the most important plot episode so far, and it's like, well, we're gonna do this now. It's like to use a reference from a different show. Cap, you're gonna know exactly what I'm gonna say because I'm gonna use a Buffy reference. There's an episode dealing with Buffy and Angel's relationship towards the end of season 2, and it's the one where they're like possessed by the ghost reliving their death, and it's really tragic and kind of compares them. And then the next episode is the fish people episode.
Yeah, and the difference is when you're doing 22 a season, you expect occasional crappy one-off, pointless, no reason to watch this episodes.
Yeah, but just
not in a tight season like this.
Right? That's just the one I go to because it's like and that's sandwiched right between that episode and the 2-part finale.
Yeah, no, you got it all over Star Trek too. It's always funny when that happens.
I hate the fish people episode.
Okay, were there any characters that you guys? I'll just ask a few questions as we start steering into the end here. Are there any characters that you guys felt like were underdeveloped, underutilized, kind of shafted? Anybody that was like a favorite that you were like, we didn't do enough with them. I hope we do more in the next season.
Well, I mean,
we said Wolverine.
We said Sinister. And that's not even one of my favorites. I just wanted him to finally do something.
Sinister's awesome in episode 3, and then as we go along, he gets a little shafted just because of Bastion, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I already said Wolverine, so I'm gonna go with Gambit. He gets a really cool send off in episode 5, but he doesn't do much between episodes 1 and 5.
Well, he's just kind of part of a love triangle, and
and like Gambit's one of my favorites from that original show, and I think he also feels like the same character. So I would have liked to see him get to do more other than cook and mope about Rogue.
Have you seen the Gambit episode in season 2? I think, where he goes back to Louisiana.
I have not, but you're making me want to finally sit down and go through that show.
Yeah, well, you need to, because it's great.
No, I can't think of a single episode I've seen that I disliked. The only thing I've seen besides what I mentioned earlier was the I think it's the first Phoenix saga, not the Dark Phoenix, just the regular Phoenix saga.
And that's great too. So
why does the Phoenix show up at the end?
I don't know.
Because oh god, I am so tired of the Phoenix. That is the most like Fox X-Men thing.
We made
how do we get ourselves out of this situation? How do we get ourselves out of this situation? The Phoenix shows up. Why not?
So let's talk about how the end of the show is just X2, shall we? Magneto is our ally in this, to the point where he even takes over the school. But we work with him for a while, and then he gets a place where he has the opportunity to go bad, turn against us, try to make his dream a reality. It's different from X2 because there's no point where he's actually considering like Xavier's plans over his own. He's just kind of waiting for his moment. But we do still do that. We've got the everybody's gonna die plot, where at the end of X2, it's kill the mutants, then it's kill all the humans, and then with this it's kill everybody, but you still kind of have that, and then Phoenix at the end.
Yeah.
There's even some Ottman in the score.
Well, I mean that Phoenix scene, if I remember it correctly, is also just kind of the apocalypse scene where it's like, well, how do we get out of this situation we're in? The Phoenix shows up.
Yeah. No, she's just a straight up Deus Ex Machina. And the problem
I'm so tired of the Phoenix. We can't stop doing it.
Well, and not only is it overused, but also if you make the Phoenix a video game clear screen, then you go, well, then just reach out to it every time you need something.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't she do that? So here's my question. She wasn't there for the fall of Genosha, but if she had been, could have just stopped it with the Phoenix.
Okay, but I have a question about that.
Yeah.
If Madeline is a clone of Jean, does she also have the Phoenix?
I don't know. Well, they
Why didn't
can't
she
seem
just
to
use the
decide
Phoenix?
which of them was the Phoenix.
Well, so I will say I do appreciate that they're ambiguous about when the swap happened.
They're not, though, because Beast should be able to tell.
But
to
he
the
doesn't
day.
tell us. But he doesn't tell us. So to
Right.
the audience, it's ambiguous.
Yeah. That's fair. I feel like
I just like the idea that Beast knows, but he's just messing with everyone.
Well,
Yeah, I know, but I'm not going to tell you.
what I would assume would be was let me make this an actual sentence. What I would assume is that it happens somewhere around one of the times that she epically sacrifices herself. So like the one that comes back is the clone.
I just want somebody to go, oh, it's a Tuesday. Jean sacrificed herself again.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it is funny that they made fun of that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm bringing this up now, but it just, this is a point I wanted to make and it just came to me, so I'll say it here, which is, I like the motif of that line that comes up a few times with humans to mutants to justify their fears about mutants taking over because they're the next step in human evolution. The line, you have no idea what it feels like to be left behind by the future. And that's cool to do in a decades later show that's coming back. Like, the future left this show behind, and it's back now. Kind of, I don't know if they did that on purpose. It's kind of neat that they subtly reflected what the show is with that.
Yeah.
I also liked the guy in the second episode that invades the courthouse where he's like, you know, it's the worst thing about mutants is they just keep complaining. You think we don't have it hard, but you don't hear us complaining. Whereas this guy has been so like warped that it's, oh, you think you have it hard, well, we have it worse.
Yeah.
And just that mindset of like, it always has to one up, you know. And I meant to bring this up when we were talking about the cameos, but the Spider-Man thing I mentioned at the beginning of the show is we only get in for like 2 seconds, but at some point it looks like he found Mary Jane, and I'll take any like ray of hope that at some point Marvel will just stop messing with Spider-Man and let him have a family life in something.
When they inevitably do the revival for that show, because like, I don't think we can underestimate how big this has been for them. Like,
it's the best thing they've done since probably Infinity War.
It's the best. It's the best thing they've done on Disney Plus, in my opinion. And I get that people really like WandaVision, and I do too. But I put it even above that as a whole piece.
I would.
And it seems to be the most popular thing they've made, at least for Marvel. I don't know if we could say, going to just the whole network, the whole streaming service, I don't know if we could say it's bigger than the first couple seasons of Mandalorian, but I think it's the biggest thing they've made apart from that.
Mm-hmm.
Just the merchandising has been huge. I hear about it all the time. Like, the hype has been real for this show. And that tells me that the revival for Spider-Man is inevitable.
Well,
and when they do it, my hope, which you alluded to, John, is that the beginning of that season opens with, yeah, he found Mary Jane, let's move on. And that the whole season,
I mean, I think it has
is not a
she's
search
in
for
X-Men
her.
97.
Well, I didn't see the moment you're talking. I didn't notice that Mary Jane was
There's
there.
a shot of Peter Parker and MJ is with him.
AMC says, well, he found Mary Jane in Unlimited. I don't know if that technically counts as canonical with that show. But if they even think about it, then yes, we can just move on from that. Sure. But I've always been...
No, she's in this for a split second, and it's that exact model. It's like she's got that yellow sweater and everything.
I'll go back and look. I didn't see that. Like, I saw him, but I didn't notice that.
It's also weird that he's never in costume. Everyone else is.
Yeah, he is.
What do you mean he's never in costume?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. There is that shot of him in the costume.
Yeah.
I forgot about that
So
one.
you're saying there's a shot of Peter Parker with Mary Jane?
Yeah.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't.
Are you sure?
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I also didn't.
Because I was going to ask other people to corroborate that. I didn't notice it. I feel weird not having noticed that, but because, you know, those costumes I'm super familiar with. You'd think
not.
So is he wearing the brown jacket, or is he wearing the
just
t-shirt?
sent it to you.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll
On
find out
Messenger.
here. Let's look here on Discord. Thank you. He's
No,
like,
on
stop
Messenger.
asking questions. I said it to you.
Not on Discord, on Messenger.
You said Discord.
No, I said I sent it to you.
Oh. Oh, weird. That is them. Okay, that's not the outfit he's always wearing, but that is
No,
the
it's
thing
not.
she's
That's
always wearing.
disappointing, but
They look a little different in that animation style. I just didn't catch it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay then.
I didn't know those.
Chewbacca Lover says the 90s Spider-Man ends in 98. This takes place in 97.
So she's
Yeah,
not...
but she goes missing. She goes missing before the end of that show.
Yeah, but it's just that last season. So he's right. It's possible that happens after this, I guess.
No, Gigi, you're not the only one to care about Bishop. I'm not. I'm also.
I'm sorry. I don't care about Bishop.
Okay, Jayson, talk about Bishop.
Well, I like Bishop in the original show, and I am sad that he got shafted. He didn't do anything. He was just there for just a plot device.
And they marketed the show on him along with everybody else that's in the beginning to make you think that he's going to be in more of the show. And then he just kind of leaves to go back to the future. And then Cable's like, we got to separate somewhere. And then he shows back up at the end. And I don't really expect him to do a whole lot in the next season either. Hey, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that point that's made, I forget by whom, but that the destruction of Genosha, is it Cable or Bishop that says it? Bishop doesn't come in until the end, so it must be Cable. Yeah, I think it's Cable that says that the destruction of Genosha is an irreversible point in history. It's one of those like big, major important events that you cannot go back and change, because every time you go back and try to change it, you get kind of pulled away and it happens anyway. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Yeah, like the Flash.
So it's kind of Cable, and it's also kind of Beast, because Cable's just saying that he keeps trying to stop it, but he keeps getting sucked back into the timeline.
But Beast
and
actually
Beast theorizes that it's a fixed point.
Okay, so it's both of them.
My question about it is, does it actually line up and make sense with all of the Days of Future Past time travel we had in the 90s show?
God, don't make me think about time travel.
And
wait, let me think about it.
The reason I ask that is because I would think that there would be events that create the terrible future that happened before that would probably wipe that out.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, my big question is, why are the Sentinels in Days of Future Past not Prime Sentinels? You know.
Oh.
I mean, that's the big thing that I'm thinking.
Well, maybe Bastion doesn't happen every time, but then Bastion's the person that makes that happen.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's such a good point. I didn't think of that.
So
that's such a good point.
But then I don't remember who's in charge of everything. That it's Apocalypse in Days of Future Past, right?
Or at least in the second one. I mean, like the second weird Stop the Future time travel thing.
Yeah.
Did he do it in the first one too?
Yeah, I think he's.
I just can't remember. I know you got Nimrod and all that, but I can't remember.
Yeah. Because Nimrod is working with Apocalypse.
You remember all that way better than I do.
I also watch it quite a bit. So,
AMC says good point, Jayson.
I feel like Jason's schooling both of us on this show.
So yeah, I think,
he knows the show much better than I do.
Yeah, would Apocalypse still take over, or would it be like... would Bastion die? Like, why isn't Bastion still around?
Yeah, because all those different variations of the horrible future, if this is time-locked, that means that Bastion always did that.
Well, and then also, his whole thing is... Because the whole thing in Days of Future Past is mutants barely exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so...
And Bastion's trying to kill everybody.
So... And I mean,
To
yeah,
John's question about motivation, I still don't really know, because some of it seems to be hatred based on, I don't even know, upbringing. I didn't really get
Well, it
the whole
seems
thing
like
with his...
it kind of almost seems like he
Some of it's programming.
hates himself for being a mutant. And isn't there a line about like Xavier tried to help him as a kid?
Yes, that like he was almost at the school and could have been in the picture with the original X-Men.
That was another thing that made me think of X2.
What about it? Oh, just the Stryker thing?
Yeah, with Jayson. Was it Jayson?
Yes.
Yes. It's been so long since I've seen that.
Yeah, would Apocalypse still get his way if Bastion... I don't even know. Like, would Bastion and Apocalypse work together, is the question. Or would we find... Would, you know, whoever find a way to stop Bastion? Or, like...
RJ Godzilla says it's just the Sentinels in Days of Future Past two-parter in Season 1. Yeah,
Is it
I
just
wasn't
the
sure if there was
Sentinels?
anybody behind it. It seems like that's just the Terminator thing where, like, the AI machines take over.
Which means it could happen, but the only thing is I don't know why they aren't Prime Sentinels.
Well, and how do they take out Bastion? Because they would have to also take him out. Or he would succeed at what he's trying to do.
Right.
Which is not that.
No. And the Sentinels don't... The Sentinels, at least what they are in Days of Future Past, don't exist really anymore. So I don't really know how they come to be.
Hey, John, I have a question for you.
I have an answer.
I'm going to change topics for a second. Cyclops...
I possibly have an answer.
Cyclops were told...
I don't have an answer for anything about Cyclops.
Cyclops in this show, we're told, doesn't see in color. Apparently, life for him is a virtual boy. Mm-hmm. You know, he sees in black and he sees in red, and possibly some black, but he says I don't see in color. If you don't see color, why would you separate your team into colored teams? You don't see color, why would you go team blue and team gold? He doesn't see in color.
So I mean, I've always assumed that he just saw in red. My cop-out answer is that only affects him when he's wearing just the sunglasses. The visor that he wears on his suit has some fancy technology that lets him see in color.
I think he was wearing the visor when he said that.
No,
was he not? Okay. It's just, you wouldn't think that guy would think of colors as, you know, it was a cool nod to comics, like X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, all of that. But, and I got excited when he said that, but then I thought, wait a minute. He wouldn't even know what gold looks like. And then it makes me want to go back to and look for it in the original show. If he ever brings up a color, does he ever say anything about like blue, like blue skin, or anything like that?
What this show really needed with Cyclops is them to recreate the scene where Wolverine punches him in the gut from like the pilot.
RJ Godzilla says he used to see in color when he was a kid before he got his powers. Okay.
Well, but isn't the thing with Cyclops isn't that he just got his powers one day? It's the reason that he can't like turn it off and on is because of a plane crash that like supposedly killed his parents.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Is that in the show, though? Like,
by the way, that was just a nitpicky thing I brought up because I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I know.
Is that what they say?
And is that what they say?
I know.
They should have just gotten Ian McKellen for this.
They were looking at him a little bit with the face, right? Like, this is the oldest and most wrinkly.
Yeah.
He's looked at in this continuity.
Well, that's what's weird with this, because like it as much as it feels like that original show, there's definitely like now movies have happened.
Yes. And they have influence. But overall, I think for the better. Like, I like some of the movie influence in this show.
Yeah.
Particularly, like I said, with score. Like, I like there's a little... Just with, like, tonal stuff, like in the overall feel of the show, I like the kind of blend. because I am a
so I
big
have
movie
one
fan.
complaint about the score, and I don't know if you noticed it.
Yeah.
But it's in one of the later episodes. I think it's like 8 or 9. There is like a choir version of the '90s show animated show song, and I don't like it. It doesn't sound right.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, I like it because it's the choir version of the I'm pretty sure it's the choir version of the outro of the credits theme.
Oh, yes.
From first season.
That's a good call.
Or
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I don't know which version it was, but I didn't care for that.
Yeah, with the da 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 da.
You gotta appreciate the nod. In the there's a restaurant in one of the last episodes called Wasserman's.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's pretty cool.
I didn't catch that
because Ron Wasserman did the original theme, and of course Jason and I are giant Wasserman fans because of Power Rangers. And I've met him, and
his Power Rangers themes, from what I know of the different themes, are the best ones.
We had a really cool interaction with him in Power Morphicon back in 2016, and there's a video on the channel that, if anybody wants to go back and look at that, with a 6-year-old Jayson asking him how he came up with the Lord Zed theme, and it's great. But he's a neat guy.
That is cool.
Okay.
I always forget that he did X-Men just because I always associate him with specifically Mighty Morphin.
Well, yeah, I mean that's most of what he did, and his like background incidental music for that show is also really great. We listened to an album version of that all the time. So a couple big questions before we wrap up. We're 5 minutes from 2 hours, so we'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. If anybody has an aspect of this you want us to talk about that we didn't in the comments, there's loads of other things I'm sure we could go to. Feel free to let us know, and we'll try to hit it real quick before we go. But real quick, round robin, I also wanted to ask you guys about characters that you were disappointed not to see at all besides Mystique, and that you're hoping will come up in a second season.
Okay.
Everybody's saying Kitty Pryde right now.
Meh.
I'm hearing that a lot.
The weird thing with Kitty Pryde is Jubilee kind of fits that role in this show. So I don't know what you do to differentiate them.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a reference to her or something, but people are assuming that she'll be in the second season for some reason. So I might have missed something.
Oh yeah, Leo. He says, I wonder if you watch X-Men 97 in Japan, if it has the Japanese theme song.
There's a Japanese version?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, I gotta listen to that.
You should watch it.
Is it not that
No.
that theme at all?
No. It's very like anime style, and it's like it's crazy.
Weird.
And it's got
I'll
like
have to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, AMC says Corsair.
I would play it, but copyright.
Yeah. I'm going to say for characters that we wish were in the show.
Corsair is a good call.
And I'm gonna say like actual characters, not just like Morph turns into it for
of course. Because you did get to see Juggernaut for a second with that, but that's not,
I want Juggernaut.
Of course. Jason's a huge Juggernaut fan.
I'm also, at least in this show, one of my favorite recurring characters is Archangel, and we did not see Archangel.
Somebody said I was wrong earlier that Angel was not referenced as being an original X-Man in that show, but I thought he was. So I don't know if I'm
I know
right
Iceman was, but
anyway.
Well, if we're doing Apocalypse next season, we could see Archangel.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if you didn't. And then the question is, will he be as just nuts and mad as he is in the original show?
And also,
Apocalypse!
And also,
he just loses his mind.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And also, Archangel is really good friends with Rogue. And I think it's
really?
It's Rogue. I think it's Rogue. It's Rogue or Jubilee. I'm pretty sure it's Rogue though. Where Rogue helps him to and is sides with him against the X-Men in an episode, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think that would be cool.
Speaking of Rogue for a second, because I meant to ask you guys about this earlier. Yes. Sorry, I'm going to get off that topic for a minute, but because I brought this up at the very beginning, but we weren't doing spoilers yet. John, did you feel that Rogue was thrown under the bus or made kind of beyond redemption when she effectively kills Trask? Because Like, she throws him off a building, and it's an intentional murder, and yeah, he comes back as a as a like human sentinel
Yeah.
zombie thing. You didn't expect that they'd kill him and Gyrogoff in the same episode, right? But John, did you feel like that was taking her too far, and it'd be hard for her to come back from that, or does that work because of her villainous background?
For me personally, because it's so grief driven with what happened in episode 5 in Gambit, I don't think it's too far like that she can't come back, but I think it is too far for that character. So like I think you need to make an arc of that, but I don't think she's irredeemable.
My worry is there won't really be any talk about it because of the loophole that, well, she didn't really kill him, he dies after that.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever hear it come up again.
That would be a shame. But no, I don't have an issue with that just because of the build up to it. And I like when she's, kind of going on a rampage and Cap shows up. I really like their Cap. I think he's well written for the 5 minutes that he's in it.
Voice is great. I think he seems enough like the version that was in the flashback episode with Wolverine in the original show.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I like that they again didn't go crazy with the cameos, and he doesn't take over the show. And I also like that they didn't try to come up with some goofy backdoor immediate connection to MCU, because I think a lot of us were expecting that.
I mean, just given Marvel's track record lately, I was very nervous about this show, and the first trailer didn't really do a lot for me. But then I watched the first episode, and I was like, okay, this is good. It's not perfect, but it's good, and it's kind of what I was in the mood for from Marvel.
Yeah.
At that point, even though I like some of Phase 4 more than others. I loved Doctor Strange 2. I didn't think the Marvels was the worst thing ever. I thought it was fine.
Well, and like you said, it's kind of nice because it feels definitive enough. It's just X-Men.
Yeah.
And for you and I, guys like us that grew up on that show, this is, X-Men first, and there's lots of iterations, but this is what I think of initially when I think of X-Men. And so it kind of gets away with coming back and doing it again just because it's X-Men. And I don't think everything that's definitive could do that, partly just because of circumstances, right? You can't bring Batman the Animated Series back because Conroy's not with us, and just people wouldn't accept that.
I was actually talking about that with Robert Wild and Noah. I don't want this, because a lot of people have been claiming DC to do something like this with that DCAU. I don't want it.
I don't either.
If I can't have Conroy as the DCAU Batman, I'm just not interested.
I don't either, and I feel a little bit hypocritical in saying that because I'm not minding the recast voices in this. And if you got the right people behind it, and a lot of those guys are still alive and kicking and making things, and some of them are making a new Batman show on Amazon. So it's not like your Paul Dini's and your Burnett's and those guys couldn't come back and make a show.
I think the difference between those is
we had so much of it, and also it evolved too much. The problem is animated series stops, and then you have a revamp of that, and then you have Justice League. What would you come back and even do? What would it look like? It's very different from this show.
Well, and I think the difference is no disrespect to the voice actors in the original show, X-Men animated show. They're not Conroy. Conroy is just synonymous with that character. If you're a fan of that show and a fan fans like we are, Conroy.
Hamill
he's
too.
Irreplaceable.
AMC says, I argue it's fair because Superman was voiced by 3 actors in the DCAU. But I think it's case by case with particular characters. And
it wasn't a revival. None of those were revivals. If you recast Conroy midway through DCAU, nobody would have cared.
Alfred had 2 voices too. Scarecrow had a couple of voices too.
But we're so far past that. I don't think many people would accept that style with a different Batman voice.
And I also feel like the people that made that show have really changed and would make it a different thing from what it was. And with this show, And maybe it would still be great, don't get me wrong, but what people would want is a really authentic return to form with that.
Well, and we've seen when they tried that with Batman and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, well, that whole thing is bizarre because it was those voices and that style, but it wasn't that continuity.
I've still never seen it.
I don't understand what they were doing with that. But that is a good point you're making. Like, those guys are all around and could come back and make that show. But I think the reason this works possibly is because they brought back some of the original the original showrunners and producers as consultants, but they didn't build the show from the ground up, and it's got new blood on it that like love that show and have reverence for it and arguably understand it and were able to make it again. Batman is a horse of a different color. I don't think it would come back that way. I don't think new people would develop it, and those in Burnett and Tim and those guys would come back as consultants, right?
Well, and I think what we're doing now with that Cape Crusader show, even though I'm not in love with some of the villain choices that they've made, is much more interesting than just let's bring back the DCAU without like half the voice actors that you care about.
Dagan Spear says, who said it wasn't the same continuity? I think Tim said that. With Batman and Harley Quinn.
Oh.
It's been a while. I may not be remembering that right. Whatever. It's not important. But all these things I think you have to take really, really case by case. Both in whether there's anything left to do with it and whether it's going to feel like just rehash. And then a lot of it's just the quality of it, right? Like, if this had come out, right, and it had felt like you just repeated yourself and it was a shadow of its former self, or it felt like self-parody, which was what I was afraid it would look like, John, we would all go, see, that's why you can't make things like this. But it worked for a lot of us, and there's a real quality here, and it justifies, it more than justifies his existence. It makes me go, oh, there did need to be more of this show. But if it sucked, we wouldn't be saying that. We'd say, don't make these things, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, Young Justice came back, and people weren't happy with it.
I don't think I've ever been more disappointed by a revival.
A lot of people say that, yeah. And most revivals for, animation, live action, otherwise, have been otherwise. I don't know what else there is. Have not been good.
I hope Marvel hasn't shot themselves in the foot, because this sets a really high bar for their rest of their animated series. Like, I think if Spider-Man if they do Spider-Man 98 and it's on this quality level, it'll be bigger than this show.
I think so too. I absolutely agree with that, because Spider-Man it always does well.
Yeah. The question is, will it be as good as this show?
Yeah. And I think if you go to the original showrunner with that, and he's not just a consultant, that may not work out.
After that Green
great.
Lantern movie he did, no, please.
Yeah, I'm afraid they might take it the wrong kind of serious, you know? And I need, and you know that they won't, I need Disney to learn the right lessons from this. I need it to be about quality of making cool animated shows and some original things to come out of this, and it not all be rehash and going back to, you bring back old stuff. Because this was an anomaly. It's not going to work every time. I guess what I mean is, okay, maybe it will. Maybe they'll nail it every time. But if they do, let's say they made 8 of these things and they were all based in the Marvel 90s continuity. Then the lesson you're learning is, let's just live in the past now. Let's make everything.
Which is why I really hope that
the
Spider-Man
90s.
show, the other one that they announced, I forget its name now. I really hope that comes out and is good, so that they can kind of see, hey, there's just an audience for this in general.
Yes. Yes.
Like, okay, so
and the Superman show helps. Yeah.
I'm a little out of the loop on the timeline, so I could be like off here. But the last time that I can remember a quality superhero show before like the last couple of years was season 1 of Young Justice back in what, like 2014? 2012, something like that.
Earth's Mightiest Heroes was around that same time.
Okay.
Which is the last.
Well, but like that whole like wave, like
yes.
Spectacular, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Young Justice, and then I feel like Young Justice ended and then it came back and nobody cared because it wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
mean,
like, Spider-Man devolved into nonsense.
on the DC side, they kind of just stopped doing animation for the most part. You know, you had that one season of that really good Green Lantern CG show, and there'd be attempts at little things here and there for, you had like the Justice League action show and stuff like that. But like for the most part, they just didn't do a lot. And then you had a whole Marvel side that was spearheaded by what's his face? Help me out. Superman, Batman, Long Halloween, Jeff Loeb.
Jeff Loeb.
I was just gonna call him Spearhead.
And everybody that was over the age of 5 hated that stuff.
Is that Iron Man Rise of the Technovore? Or is that something else?
No, that's a different thing. I mean, that was just a movie, but I'm talking about all of the kitty like not very good
like
looking.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, that stuff. And the Guardian show they made.
Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And in many ways, Ultimate Spider-Man is like my Spider-Man, the comic. I was so excited when they announced Ultimate Spider-Man. I didn't know anything about it, just the title. I was like, oh, we're finally going to do like a proper adaptation. And then I watched it. I was like, what? Who is this for?
Yeah. Exactly. Sorry,
have you
we'll
seen
start
any of
wrapping up stuff here.
2017 Spider-Man? Because it's even worse somehow.
I saw the first episode of that, and I was really shocked.
Yeah, and when was Brave and the Bold?
Brave and the Bold was in the early 2010s.
Beware the Batman.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And that was only on for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had something else I wanted to ask you guys.
Sorry, you're talking about Brave and the Bold. For some reason, I thought you said Beware the Batman was on for 3 years. I was like, no, it wasn't.
No, Brave and the Bold was on for 3 years. Okay, predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John, did you get to bring up any characters you really wanted to see?
No, you didn't.
I can't remember.
I want to see Colossus. I love Colossus.
Oh, yeah.
And the last thing I want to mention with character stuff is I love that like moment with Scott and Nathan towards the end when Scott thinks he's gonna die. That was a nice little moment.
It was, and I think one of, if not my favorite action scenes in the whole show was the family in the truck bit with Cyclops and Jean and Cable.
Yes.
That was really fun.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the Corvette?
Yes.
Sorry,
I thought it was a truck. It was a Corvette.
No.
You're right.
And they pull out of their airship, and there's just a Corvette that pops out. It's hilarious.
RJ Godzilla says Superhero Squad was very kiddie, but was pretty good. Yeah, but it was still like right around 2010, 2011, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did not get into the mid 2000s. But anyway, getting back to this real quick as we're finishing up, I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I wanted to see.
Yeah,
I'm hoping they.
There was a character that I can't remember. So.
Oh, okay. I will say I want to see finally this continuity's version of Stryker. I want them to do some variation on Man Loves God Kills, or God Loves Man Kills. Yeah, I hope they do something like that.
If they do that, though, I want them to make it like a Nightcrawler episode.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes.
And obviously,
also his fight scene is awesome with the swords.
Yeah, where he's like,
I like
no.
Wolverine's like, I've got like 6 reasons.
He goes, here's 9.
Yeah, and what's really funny?
That's not how that works.
What's really funny is he keeps saying his like one-liners in German, right? But because 9 means no in German, he says no, and then he says the number 9.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's cool.
AMC says, if you can believe it, Paul Dini was heavily involved with Ultimate Spider-Man 2012.
I didn't know that.
Oof.
Yeah, that's shocking.
That just makes me sad.
Okay, can we get off that? I need to finish the show.
Sorry.
So Yeah, I appreciate you guys in the comments, but we got to get off other animated shows. We're 15 minutes past 2 hours. I'm trying to finish this up. I'm struggling to think of anybody else that I really need to see from the old show that we haven't already dealt with. I mean, I guess Psylocke would be nice. Do something else with her. Anyway, any big predictions that we have for the next season? Surely Onslaught.
Yeah.
Surely we're going to.
I think we're gonna see like that 90. I think it's the 90s, like Wolverine right after he has the adamantium ripped off, where like he doesn't have a nose and he's like feral or something.
Oh, sure.
I think we're gonna see that, a version of that, and maybe that leads him to, because isn't there a story where he becomes a horseman of the apocalypse?
Is there? Where Wolverine does?
I don't know.
Wow.
I'm gonna fact check myself if I can speak.
Fact your checks.
Yeah, I don't know the comics that well, so I have nothing.
You just have no idea where. I mean, just based on like the cliffhanger and where we're left at, like, what do you think they'll do with the time travel shenanigans? One question I have is it gonna be like Savage Land?
Okay.
Where we're just like where we have characters stuck in a place for a whole season or half a season?
Okay, but do you no. I actually really like that they're doing like the season 2 Savage Land thing where they're just stuck in random places. But do you know who I want to come back?
Sauron.
No. Do you know who I want to come back?
Who?
Although Sauron would be cool.
Yeah.
But we're messing with like time and stuff. The annoying guy in that one time travel episode where Bishop is trapped in time. And then there's that annoying guy.
The stupid imp guy?
Yeah.
That wants to be Jim Carrey so bad?
Yeah. That's the one character that I wish came back for this that we didn't see anything from him. What the heck?
Morph didn't even turn into him.
No.
Not that he would.
So Wolverine
not
was
that Morph would know who that
temporarily
is.
Death of the Four Horsemen.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's how he gets his adamantium back.
Okay, well then they'll probably do that. Yep, it sounds like that's
also I want Iceman. That'd be cool.
It's also pretty evident that Gambit's gonna come right back because of the mid credits with Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Because he's got the playing card.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Claremont that does that. Okay.
His voice is perfect, and I wonder if it's the original actor or not.
Yeah.
Because I didn't go back and look at that, but he's got one line and it sounds awesome.
Apocalypse.
But yeah, beyond that, it's kind of fun that we're 3,000 years ahead and 3,000 years behind.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then Apocalypse is, I guess, in present day when he finds the card. Right?
Yeah,
I would assume. I guess I don't know.
I don't think I saw that.
Oh, yeah, there's a mid-credits with...
Okay.
And I wonder... I'm sorry, I'll show it to you right after. And
I think I saw it, but I don't remember.
And I wonder if we'll pull them all together real fast in the first episode, or if they will be subplots for, like... Because that could be tedious, depending on how they do it. And we're likely right to really enjoy one of those and be really bored by the other one. Whichever it is.
So... The guy that voices Apocalypse for that one little bit is also the guy that voices Xavier in this.
Oh, fascinating.
Well, maybe he's just really good at Apocalypse.
I didn't look up that actor, but I saw in looking at behind the scenes stuff, watching some of these actors talk. Let me look him up real quick because he looks exactly like a guy from later Walking Dead, and I think it might be that guy. It is. It's the guy who plays Aaron in Walking Dead, who's Xavier. It's amazing.
So while we're talking about cast, I did not realize that Jennifer Hale plays Jean Grey. She's in the Mass Effect trilogy, and a bunch of other video games. A lot of BioWare games. Like she plays Bastila in the original Knights of the Old Republic, which is one of my favorite games of all time. She's awesome as Jean, I think. And now it makes sense because I know who that is. She's great.
There is one line where she just not degrades, but I'm just going to say degrades. She degrades into a British accent.
I like what she does with Madeline Pryor also, like when she goes all super.
Call me Madeline
cool.
Pryor.
I don't know why she thought of that name, but
I don't know.
I don't know. Madeline Pryor is weird because she just comes up with names for herself off the top of her head that don't seem to be related to anything. I'm the Goblin Queen. Why? Don't ask questions. Call me Madeline Pryor. Just spent all morning trying to come up with that. Did you do the Miss Doubtfire thing where you saw Madeline on one side of the room and Pryor on the other side of the room and you just sandwiched them together?
I was more so confused about the Goblin Queen. Like, what does that mean?
I just know that's her name in the comics, but I don't know where it came from. I don't know why she's called the Goblin Queen.
Yeah, like there's no goblins.
I know. I remember this. I wonder if it makes more sense in the comics that she's called the Goblin Queen. Okay, John, I know you're used to talking with me for 24 straight hours, but we're not gonna do that with this. Okay, we got.
Oh, see, I thought we were gonna just do like after we did the review, just like all 10 episodes. It's like a marathon.
Wow, this is the longest preamble in the history of Geekvolution for a watch party. But no, we're not doing that. John, we gotta have you on more. How we felt about this. This was wonderful. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty close to the top.
You did great. It was what?
It's pretty close to the top for longest preamble. I don't know if it's the top or.
Jayson, John.
Cap likes to take about 2 to 3 hours every video for the preamble before we get into the meat of everything.
I do way too lengthy preambles. I always do this. I'll talk for a little while. Think that I just set the video up. Think it's 2 minutes in. I'll look up. It's 10 minutes in, and I'm like, what am I doing?
Oh, I've looked up and it's been like 40 minutes in.
Like, what am I doing? Anyway.
What have I done?
Jayson, John, do you guys have any other aspects of this that we missed that you're just burning to mention before we say farewell to everybody?
Man, that third episode was friggin' weird.
With like Madeline Pryor and everybody seeing their greatest fears and
yeah, that was weird. That was the most off the beaten path thing. Like that was like the first like really like different thing that really it felt like it was its own thing.
Sinister's introduction is great though.
Yeah.
The only thing, this isn't like a major thing I was like dying to talk about, but I did want to mention it. I don't know if you guys caught this, but at the end when Bishop comes back and like is explaining things to Forge, if you look on the board, Scarlet Witch is on the board.
Yes.
And it says she's off planet.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh.
So I'm assuming that she will be. I'm assuming that she will also be involved in how they end up stopping Apocalypse with whatever Apocalypse story they're.
No, Scarlet Witch is going to single-handedly shut down the Shi'ar Empire, and like I hope so because I hate them now.
God.
No, what she's gonna do is she's gonna come back to Earth and tell Apocalypse that he took everything from her, and he's gonna be like, "I don't even know who you are."
Oh, and
I don't care.
Did you guys catch in Remember It? Did you guys catch the Watcher?
Yes, that was so cool. Did you notice that, John?
No.
There's a subtle like image of the Watcher just before the big massacre happens on Genosha.
Just in the sky where there's like fireworks and stuff. Just like there's like a silhouette of a Watcher.
It's really cool. Yeah, well, I was gonna say it's like 20% opacity.
Yeah.
So it's like if you blink you miss it, and it's wonderful. It's so cool they thought to do that.
Season 2 of or season 3 of What If will be what if Genosha didn't get destroyed.
Oh, sure.
Oh.
Well, but you can't have that because it's an event you can't change. And that's got to be why the Watcher is there. The Watcher is there watching this really important pivotal point, and it's so important that it can't be changed by time travel. That's why the Watcher is there.
It's like to imagine the Watcher sitting there, and every time he sees Nathan trying to change it, he just pulls him back.
Wait, but if the Watcher is watching it, then maybe this is the what if, and then they do a what if episode that's just
Genosha, what really happened?
This just
Well, then
Genosha
that
didn't.
wouldn't be a what if episode anymore. That's just what happened.
Yeah. Like here's what we did this what if thing in X-Men. Here's what really happened.
But with worse animation.
Living in
and
a happy
writing.
nation.
Yeah, with worse animation.
we don't have very good animation. This show, I'm trying to think of a really crappy like old Saturday morning cartoon show, but like this show makes that look even worse than it is.
Yeah.
What if? Like, what if is now embarrassing in comparison to this?
GG asks, actually, last question. What was your first initial reaction to Remember It? Mine was something I don't know if I can say on the channel.
Oh, did you swear out loud?
Yeah.
I kind of had that with Wolverine at the end of episode 9, too. I was like, wow.
So I was impressed that we actually went there, but I also think they cheat by just having it be like a still image that's on screen for like half a second.
Okay, well, that's fair, but I just wasn't expecting it to happen.
Doing that randomly, where there's just random still images, and then they have it. It just came off as lazy, where they get their old costumes and then they just walk, and it's just like.
You know what I was what I was most shocked by, John? I think the reason I had that response at the end of 9 was that Wolverine got to do something.
That's true.
And it's like, oh my god!
Consistent, because he in the old show he would go to fight and then just get his butt handed to him.
Yeah, he was like Worf in TNG. I was gonna say first season TNG, but let's face it, Worf through that entire show.
Worf.
That whole show is just a barrel falls on him. Like that's TNG.
And it's just a shame because I love Wolverine, but you can't do anything with him in a show meant for. For this show, maybe slightly older, but what the original show meant for kids.
But like he full on stabs Magneto. Like you can do stuff with him now.
Yeah, I'm just glad they didn't go full ultimatum and have.
Or was it Magneto?
Yeah,
it was Magneto.
He stabs somebody.
And have Magneto blast Wolverine into bits with his with Cyclops' laser vision.
You have to say optic blast, or the Cyclops fans will come after.
There was
I've learned this.
There was a cool...
optic blast.
Early on in my career, I called it heat vision a couple times, and I just got mad hate from people.
No.
It's an optic. I'm like, okay, can you explain that to me? I don't know what the difference is.
No, he's got a ColecoVision, Dad.
He's got a ColecoVision?
Yeah, and Beast has Intellivision.
What the hell are you talking about?
Because he's intelligent.
Good one?
Yeah. Well, it's because it's like it's not heat vision.
Reaction was
It's
the funniest.
It's
like what?
It's ColecoVision.
My reaction to the end of Remember It was, okay, wait, I missed the part where Magneto died. I had to roll back because I missed I didn't know what the Sentinel was talking about when he said like Omega level threat eliminated, and I was like. Wait, Magneto died? And then I had to go back and look at it again. That was my reaction. So yeah, I was surprised by Gambit, but I was more just perturbed by what happened to Magneto. I'm confused.
Yeah, I really liked.
I must have been taking a sip of water or something. I don't know.
The fade to black when Rogue says something. No, when Rogue says, "I can't feel you."
Oh, so good.
It's really good.
And that him in like Gambit in her arms at the end felt right out of Death of Superman, and I love that shot. It just looked wonderful,
and it kind of like comes back to that Storm bit in episode 2 where she goes like, "I can't feel it, the rain or the mist nor the moisture," and then
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
excellent point. How do you feel about that? Just that phrase that like that's come back now as like Gambit's thing.
Oh, I liked it. So,
because John,
that's in Days of Future Past, I think.
Yeah,
when he says that,
he says that to Bishop.
Yeah, in Days of Future
when
Past.
Bishop thinks that he's the assassin.
Yeah, and then he's like, the name's Gambit. Remember it. And then he says it again, and I thought...
Now it's like
I thought
his
cool.
trademarked catchphrase.
And I mean, I thought that was cool that he said
I
it
think
again.
that works for the kind of character Gambit is.
But then randomly Rogue just goes, his name was Gambit, remember it. And I'm like, why did you need to say that?
Why did you remember they said remember it? Like, that's his thing now. Yeah.
And she only heard him say that once.
I
She
mean,
didn't
I was
see-
okay with
yeah.
the motivation behind it, saying it to Bastion, because, that was, like, Bastion's fault that he died.
But
and
it
she
felt...
would want revenge on that guy.
It felt too much like, oh, look at this line. Remember this line? Remember this line?
It did feel like that MCU thing where we're trying to manufacture a catchphrase.
Yes.
But I didn't have that initially. It was more just that it came back like that. But
I did.
I don't know if that's fair. But...
I didn't necessarily have that just because that's a common thing you see with this kind of like, oh, you did something bad to me. Now I'm getting my one up is on you. It's remember this, what you did to me personally.
It was an episode title, so it stands out to me more.
Sure.
And I mean, it was a cool scene in that original show. But
Okay, guys, we've been talking about this for 2.5 hours. We should probably wrap up. Jason, I have to go on a trip tomorrow. We better get going. But everybody, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. John, let's do another one at some point, man.
Let's just message me. I'll be there.
You rock, man. I appreciate you.
Final thought is I'm glad that this show continues the MCAU's tradition of having Iron Man show up just to get beat up.
Yeah, and boy, I didn't realize how much I missed that suit too. That's my favorite Iron Man suit.
This show would have been like a masterpiece if they'd kept the original '90s suit up scene. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I have. Yeah, that would have been great. So yeah, John and I are going to try to bring Smallville back in the not too distant future. I don't know if it'll be August or September, and obviously I got to coordinate this with John. But just on my end, I don't know if I'll be available till then. But I'm hoping to do it relatively soon. See how much more of that we can knock out this year. We've only got 5 more seasons left, which
We're
sounds
halfway there.
Which sounds like a lot, but we did 5 last year, and I don't know if we'll finish it, by the time the year is out, but I'm going to try to get close if we can. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Really appreciate you. Jason and I have some things cooking that we're going to start doing when we get back from vacation. We'll be out all this week. We're going out to a lodge where it's hard to shoot, so I'm just going to take the week off. But when I get back, we'll be putting out more fun streams for you. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I was Captain Logan.
And I was Jayson.
Remember it.
I was John.
And thanks for watching, everybody. Bye. See you, folks.